Welcome back, my brave believers of the bizarre A to my channel, where every whisper hides a story and every shadow hides a soul. Tonight, weary not stepping into crumbling asylums or abandoned graveyards. No, tonight, the spotlight is on the stage. Texas A, land of legends, music, and restless spirits, A is home to some of the most haunted theaters in America. Behind the velvet curtains, beneath the polished wood floors, something unseen stirs. Actors have long gone, audiences have scattered, but the show never really ends. So dim the lights, silence your phones, and take your seats. Because tonight, we unveil the 25 most haunted theaters in Texas A, where the curtains move by themselves. In the heart of downtown San Antonio, surrounded by the hum of traffic and the scent of the nearby Riverwalk, stands a building that seems to belong to another era. The majestic Theater A, an ornate masterpiece of Spanish Mediterranean architecture, A has been entertaining the living since 1929. But long after the curtains close and the crowds leave, something else takes the stage. Some say the majestic never truly sleeps, because not all its performers ever left. By day, it is dazzling, a golden ceiling that shimmers like a twilight sky, stars twinkling in the soft glow of stage lights. Tourists marvel at its beauty, unaware of the ghost stories whispered among the staff. But when night settles and the last echoes of applause fade, the theater transforms. The air thickens. The chandeliers sway gently as if stirred by unseen movement. Faint footsteps echo through the aisles where no one walks. For years, ushers and janitors have spoken of strange occurrences. They LL tell you about the lights that flicker even after the power has been cut, or about hearing faint laughter, like an audience reliving a favorite line from a long-forgotten play. In the upper balcony, where the shadows stretch longest, cold spots linger, a brief pockets of icy air that appear out of nowhere. The bravest employees have stayed late to test the stories, but few last long. They all leave whispering the same thing: someone else is here. Among these legends, one name is spoken with both fear and respect: A, the gentleman in gray. He is a theater's most enduring spirit, a figure who appears only when the house is nearly empty. Dressed in an old-fashioned suit and wide-brimmed hat, he carries himself with quiet dignity. Witnesses say he stands at center stage, motionless, gazing out toward the seats as though waiting for his cue. Others have spotted him in the wings, hat in hand, as if observing a rehearsal that ended long ago. No one knows exactly who he was. Some claim he was an actor who died before his big debut, a performer struck down by illness the night before opening. Others say he was a director, or perhaps a stagehand, who loved the majestic so deeply that his spirit refused to leave. Whatever his story, everyone agrees on one thing: the gentleman in gray belongs to the theater. He is not a threat, but a lingering echo, a soul still performing his eternal part. One night in the 1970s, a security guard claimed he saw him clearly. The man had finished his rounds and was locking up when he heard the sound of a single pair of hands clapping. It came from the main auditorium. Thinking someone was left inside, he entered. The theater was pitch dark, save for the faint glow from the stage exit lights. As his flashlight beam swept across the seats, it caught the faint outline of a figure standing center stage, a tall, motionless, wearing a gray suit. The guard called out, but the figure didn't move. When he approached, it faded into the shadows before his eyes. On the stage floor, he later found a single gray glove. Stagehands, too, have their stories. One tells of working late to adjust a backdrop when he heard a man humming softly from behind the curtain. The tune was old, a forgotten melody from a 1930s musical once performed there. When the stagehand called out, the humming stopped. Then came 3 deliberate taps on the wooden stage, like the signal for a curtain rise. When he looked, the curtain rippled, though no breeze passed through the room. He left immediately and never worked a night shift again. Perhaps the most chilling reports come from the actors themselves. Some have said they felt watched during performances, a cold gaze from the darkened balcony. One actress, during a dress rehearsal, froze midline after seeing a man in gray sitting in the front row. She assumed it was a director or a theater manager until she realized no one else could see him. When she blinked, he was gone. Later that evening, when the final bow came, she swore she heard faint applause coming from an empty seat. Even the stage light seemed to obey an unseen rhythm. Technicians have noticed them flicker during quiet moments, dimming and brightening as though responding to invisible cues. Once, during a late-night repair, a spotlight turned on by itself, shining directly on center stage, where the gentleman is said to appear. The power board was off. The light remained steady for several minutes, then clicked off with a soft mechanical sigh. Locals believe the gentleman in gray isn't alone. Some claim to see the fleeting image of a woman in a shimmering gown. Others hear laughter from the dressing rooms, or catch the scent of old cologne near the stage curtains. But none appear as often or as clearly as the gentleman himself. He is the majestic, silent guardian, ensuring the show goes on, even in death. To this day, the staff keeps a small ritual out of respect. Before locking up, some leave a seat open in the front row, an unspoken invitation for the gentleman in gray to watch in peace. During rehearsals, a few still whisper a quiet greeting toward the wings before the lights come up. Ida S. said that when he has acknowledged, the performances run smoothly. When he has ignored, things go wrong, their props fall, lights fail, or actors forget their lines. And when the final audience member leaves, when the air grows still and the city outside begins to fade into sleep, the majestic theater becomes as alone once more. Somewhere in the darkness, a soft shuffle of footsteps crosses the stage. A hat is lifted, and though no curtain rises and no crowd remains to applaud, the gentleman in gray performs a forever waiting for the cue that never comes. In the heart of downtown Austin, beneath the neon lights and the buzz of 6th Street, stand the Paramount Theater, a century-old landmark that glows with timeless elegance. Its golden marquee shines proudly, a symbol of old Hollywood glamour. Inside, velvet curtains and ornate ceilings transport visitors to another era, where silent films flickered across silver screens and jazz floated through smoke-filled rooms. Yet for all its charm and beauty, the Paramount holds a quieter, colder secret. When the audience is gone and the lights fade, something lingers among the rows of empty seats, a whisper from the past that refuses to fade away. The Paramount opened in 1915, built as a grand stage for vaudeville performances before transforming into a movie palace in the golden age of film. Over the decades, it has hosted legends from Charlie Chaplin reels to live performances by icons like Katharine Hepburn and Harry Houdini. The walls have soaked in applause, laughter, and countless ovations. But they also held on to something else, a haunting presence that slips between the aisles long after the curtain falls. Actors will performed on its stage speak in hushed tones about sudden chills during monologues, about cold air brushing the back of their necks, as if someone were standing just behind them. It happens without warning, even in the heat of summer, when the stage lights blaze and the crowd is alive. One performer described feeling a hand of icy graze her shoulder in the middle of the scene, a fleeting touch that froze her breath, but didn't break her performance. The crew found no explanation, no vent, no draft, no open door. Just still air and the faint scent of old perfume. Then there is the balcony, the most haunted corner of the Paramount. Projectionists have long told stories about her, the woman in white. She appears when the lights dim, often just before the first reel begins. Dressed in 1920s finery, a beaded gown, long gloves, and a soft feather hat, Some say she glances down at the audience, as though searching for someone she once knew. Others have seen her sit perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, her gaze locked on the screen. When the lights return, she is gone, leaving only a faint shimmer in the dust and the echo of her perfume lingering in the air. According to old records, a woman did die there more than a century ago. It was 1919, a packed screening night for a silent drama. Witnesses recalled a young woman in her 20s, elegant and radiant, who had come alone. She had a small smile as she found her seat in the balcony. No one noticed anything unusual until halfway through the film, when her head tilted back slightly and her body went still. A doctor from the audience rushed to help, but it was too late. The official cause was heart failure. The theater staff covered her with a shawl and waited for the coroner. Yet as they carried her out, a few swore they saw her eyes open for a second, reflecting projector light as if she were still watching the film. From that night on, strange things began to happen. The projection room doors would creak open on their own. Reels would unspool without being touched. Late-night projectionists began reporting the same thing. A faint reflection of a woman's face appearing in the glass of the projector window, even when the theater was empty. The more the Paramount evolved, a switching from silent pictures to talkies, from film to digital, the more the stories persisted. The more the Paramount evolved, a switching from silent pictures to talkies, from film to digital, the more the stories persisted. The ghost never left, adapting with the times like an eternal audience member, watching every show, unseen but ever present. During restoration work in the 1970s, construction crews encountered her too. One worker swore he saw a woman in white walk past the scaffolding and disappear into the wall where no doorway existed. Another said he heard heels clicking above him when he was alone in the balcony. The sound stopped the moment he called out. When he looked up, he saw nothing but dust drifting in a beam of light. Some crew members refused to work late after that. Even modern visitors sense her. Patrons taking photos before shows sometimes capture a faint blur beside them, a woman-shaped mist in vintage attire. Staff members closing up for the night often hear a seat creak, as though someone just sat down. The balcony curtains sway, without a draft. The motion sensors trigger softly, once, then go still. Some believe she stays because she loved the Paramount too deeply to move on, that her final moments of wonder, watching the flicker of film, became an eternity. Perhaps she never realized she died, and the movie simply never ended. The audience leaves, the lights fade, but she remains, forever caught between real and reality. Others whisper that she's waiting for someone they'll love her, who promised to meet her there long ago. Maybe she bought that ticket, hoping to see him one last time. And when her heart failed, her spirit stayed behind, still waiting for him to arrive. Whatever her story, she seems harmless, almost gentle, a quiet presence more melancholic than menacing. To this day, the Paramount staff leave the balcony seat where she died untouched during certain late screenings, a silent tribute to the Lady in White. When the final credits roll and the lights slowly rise, the faintest shape can sometimes be seen a woman standing in the aisle, watching the screen fade to black. And when the last echoes of applause drift away, and the projector light dims for the night, she remains in her eternal seat, lost in the flickering glow of a film that never ends. In the quiet town of Jefferson, where the echoes of the 19th century still linger among cobblestone streets and antique storefronts, stands a building that time refuses to silence, the Jefferson Opera House. Once the pride of community, it was a grand stage where laughter, applause, and music filled the night air. Its walls were gilded, its chandeliers glittering like stars, and the stage was alive with the grace of ballerinas and the power of soaring voices. But that was long ago. Now, beneath layers of dust and the weight of history, the Opera House sings a different kind of song, a one of spirits who never stop performing. It was the beating heart of the town. Traveling performers from across Texas came to grace its stage. But the golden age dimmed quickly, and as the decades passed, the Opera House faded into memory, a relic left of the ghosts of its past. Locals will tell you that the building is never truly silent. On moonless nights, when the town is asleep and even the crickets fall quiet, something stirs within those walls. The faint, haunting sound of violins drifts through the cracks of the boarded doors. The notes are slow, mournful, yet impossibly precise, as if a phantom orchestra were still rehearsing for a show that no living soul can see. Those brave enough to step inside after dark often regret it. The wooden floors creak underfoot, The air grows cold and heavy, and the scent of old perfume and candle wax lingers, as though the theater had only just emptied. The great red curtains still hang, moth-eaten and fragile, yet they sway gently even when the air is perfectly still. Some visitors swear they have seen them lift just slightly, as though responding to an unseen conductor signal, preparing to reveal the stage. And then come the dancers. Witnesses describe them as translucent forms, gliding across the stage in pairs. They move in perfect rhythm, their gowns and coats shimmering faintly like reflections on water. Their faces, though, are hollow, eyes dark and empty, mouths moving soundlessly to music only they can hear. The floorboards creak beneath their phantom steps, and the faint rustle of fabric accompanies their ghostly waltz. Sometimes the audience seats fill with pale figures, motionless and watching, as though the performance has begun again. One local historian, who had spent years researching the Bodinga's history, decided to spend a night inside, determined to prove or disprove the stories. He brought his recorder, camera, and flashlight, setting up his equipment in the main hall. For hours, nothing happened. Then, near midnight, the faint strains of a violin began to play from the stage. It was soft at first, almost like a whisper. As he raised his camera, the curtains rippled. A shape appeared, a woman in a flowing white dress, turning in slow circles, her arms lifted in graceful arcs. The melody swelled, and he felt a chill rush over him. When he blinked, the stage was empty again. His footage captured nothing but faint streaks of light and the echo of a single violin note. Others tell of hearing voices, laughter, applause, the gentle murmur of an unseen crowd. A former caretaker once described locking up late one night when he heard someone whisper behind him, encore, The voice was clear and close, right beside his ear. He turned, but no one was there. The heavy velvet drape shifted slightly, as though someone had brushed past. He never worked another night shift again. According to local legend, the spirits that haunt the opera house are remnants of its final night of glory. In 1898, during a sold-out opera performance, a sudden fire broke out backstage. Panic swept the audience. The flames were quickly contained, but smoke filled the theater, and several performers and patrons never made it out. Ida said the final act was never completed, and the soprano's last note silenced mid-song. The dancers frozen in their final steps. When the theater reopened years later, the staff began hearing strange noises after dark. Many believe the performers had returned to finish the show they never got to complete. Over the years, paranormal investigators have tried to capture proof. Some report cold spots that move through the aisles like invisible figures passing by. Others claim to have recorded whispers, faint, melodic fragments of forgotten arias. In one chilling account, a visitor playing an old opera record through a portable speaker said the song abruptly stopped, replaced by a woman's voice softly humming the same tune in perfect pitch, though the record player was no longer spinning. Despite its haunted reputation, or perhaps because of it, the Jefferson Opera House has become a magnet for those drawn to the paranormal. On guided tours, guests often stand in silence beneath the old chandelier, waiting for the faint sound of violins to begin. Some say they feel a presence moving among them, gentle yet watchful. Others claim to hear soft footsteps circling the balcony above. In the Oak Cliff district of Dallas stands a theater whose history is forever tied to one of America's darkest moments. The Texas Theater, with its glowing marquee and old-world charm, once served as a proud centerpiece of entertainment, a place where families came to laugh, dream, and escape into stories on the silver screen. But ever since November 22, 1963, its story has carried a chilling echo. This was the place where Lee Harvey Oswald, the accused assassin of President John F. Kennedy, was captured. That single event sealed the theater's place in history and, some say, opened a door that has never fully closed. By day, the Texas Theater looks like any restored vintage cinema, red velvet seats, ornate ceiling patterns, and a stage still used for small shows and film festivals. Yet those who work there know that the building is not at rest. Long after the audiences are gone and the popcorn machines are silent, the atmosphere changes. The shadows seem to grow thicker, and faint sounds drift through the empty aisles, a sound that defy easy explanation. Projectionists, who often stay late after screenings, tell the most unsettling stories. Thea V heard heavy footsteps echoing from the upper balcony, slow and deliberate, as if someone were pacing back and forth. That balcony, Thea LL remind you, is where Oswald sat before his capture. When they go to check, no one is ever there, though the seat still sways slightly, as if recently disturbed. Sometimes, they swear, the footsteps stop the moment they shine a flashlight upward, only to resume again once the light is gone. The air itself seems to change when the house lights dim. A heaviness settles over the theater, a pressure that makes the walls feel closer. Technicians working on the lighting rigs have reported sudden chills, the kind that make every hair stand on end. Some have even described hearing the faint sound of someone breathing just behind them, but when they turn, they find nothing but the flickering glow of the projector bulb. Though Oswald's capture brought the world's attention to the Texas theater, those Wo V experienced at hauntings insist that his spirit is only one of several that inhabit the space. The building's long history stretches back to the early 1930s, when it first opened as a grand movie palace. Over the years, it has seen thousands of performances, countless screenings, and more than its share of tragedy. During the Great Depression, a projectionist reportedly died in the booth after an electrical fire sparked mid-show. And in the 1950s, a janitor working late at night suffered a fatal heart attack near the same balcony, where Oswald would later sit. Locals whisper that all these lost souls now coexist within the theater, drawn to the energy of that infamous day when history and horror collided. One of the most disturbing incidents occurred in the late 1990s during a late-night rehearsal for a local stage production. The small crew had gathered to test lighting cues, and sound levels of theater was empty except for a few technicians and one actress rehearsing her lines on stage. Suddenly, the projector room light flicked on by itself moments later. The massive white screen came alive, even though no one was in the booth. The image was grainy, wash and gray static, but shapes soon began to form in the face of a man. His expression was blank, almost frozen, but his eyes seemed to follow the people below. At first, they thought it was some old reel accidentally triggered. But the projectionist's door was locked, and the equipment had been off the entire time. The actress on stage froze mid-sentence as the image flickered and warped, the man's mouth appearing to move though no sound came through. Then, as suddenly as it began, the screen went black. The lights in the theater flickered once, twice, and then steadied. When they checked the booth, the power was still off. Nothing was playing. Visitors on ghost tours sometimes claimed to feel a presence sitting beside them, the faint dip of the seat cushion pressing down next to their leg. Some report catching a glimpse of a shadowed figure walking toward the exit doors, only to vanish before reaching them. The same exit, of course, where Oswald tried to flee before police cornered him in 1963. Unexplained cold spots, sudden drops in EMF readings, and faint audio recordings that seem to echo distant voices. Adonatea. The staff have learned to coexist with the strangeness. Thea LL tell you that when you work at the Texas Theater long enough, you stop being afraid. The ghosts are just part of the building, like the peeling plaster or the old velvet curtains. Still, few stay alone after closing. When the final credits roll and the last audience member leaves, there is a sense that the night doesn't belong to the living anymore. Occasionally, the lights above the balcony flicker for no reason, illuminating a single seat, the same seat where Oswald was found. Some nights, that seat creaks on its own, settling as though someone invisible has taken place to watch the show. And on the rare occasions when the theater falls completely silent, the faint hum of static can be heard from a projector, even when the power is cut. The Texas Theater remains a historic landmark, a place of reverence, sorrow, and lingering mystery. But for those who know its darker side, it is also a stage where the past refuses to fade. Every whisper of movement, every flicker of light, feels like a reminder that the story isn't finished. And somewhere deep within that darkened balcony, the echo of unseen footsteps still walks the same path, as if waiting for the curtain to rise again. In the heart of downtown Conroe, Texas, stands a gleaming relic of the golden age of theater, the Crichton Theater, often called the crown jewel of Montgomery County. Its grand FAA section Ade, glowing marquee, and ornate interior still capture the elegance of a time when movie palaces and stage plays brought entire towns together. But for all its beauty, the Crichton carries a story that glimmers with tragedy, a legend that refuses to fade, no matter how many years pass or how brightly the lights shine. Built in 1934, the Crichton Theater was a dream of local oilman Harry Crichton, who envisioned a stage worthy of the greats. Its chandeliers sparkled, its red velvet seats gleamed under soft golden light, and the air buzzed with the excitement of music, laughter, and drama. From the moment it opened its doors, the theater was alive, a gathering place for art, romance, and community. Yet within a decade, joy turned to sorrow, and a haunting tale was born on its stage. They say her name was Margaret, a young actress with striking features, a voice that could hush an audience, and an unshakable passion for the spotlight. She performed in local productions throughout the early 1940s, her name printed proudly on playbills, her smile captured in fading black and white photographs that still occasionally surface in local archives. But one night, a night meant to mark the peak of her career, everything went terribly wrong. It was a final act of dramatic play, a performance said to have drawn one of the largest crowds in the Crichtona-S history. Margarita's role required her to appear on the balcony set, delivering a monologue before stepping down to the stage below. She had performed it dozens of times in rehearsal without issue. But that night, as the audience watched in rapt silence, something happened. Some say a wooden beam gave way. Others insist she misstepped, blinded by the stage lights. Either way, Margaret fell. Witnesses described a sharp gasp, then silence. The orchestra stopped playing. Her co-stars froze mid-scene. She struck the stage floor, and within moments, the performance was over, not with applause, but with screams. Margaret was carried away, but she never recovered. The papers the next day called it a tragic accident. The show never reopened. For weeks afterward, the theater remained dark, its doors closed, the marquee empty. But when the lights finally returned, so did something else. The first sign came the night before a new production at S debut. As the cast rehearsed, the lights suddenly flickered and went out every bulb, every spotlight, plunging the entire theater into darkness. Moments later, a faint scent drifted to the air, a soft and floral, unmistakably lilac, with an undertone of dust, like old curtains stirred after years of stillness. No one could find the source. The next morning, the lights worked perfectly again. The incident was brushed off as faulty wiring. But the same thing happened the next opening night, and the one after that. Always before the first performance. Always followed by the same scent. Now, decades later, the tradition continues. Before nearly every show, the lights in the Crichton Theater flicker, dim, or cut out entirely, just for a moment, as if Margaret herself is reminding them that the stage still belongs to her. The faint trace of lilac perfume has been reported by countless performers and staff, lingering briefly before vanishing like smoke. Some believe it's her way of wishing the new cast good luck. Others think she's reliving her final night, forever caught in that suspended moment before the fall. The staff know her well. Technicians have reported seeing shadows move across the balcony when no one is there. During quiet moments, some hear the faint echo of footsteps above the stage, a light deliberate, as if pacing before a cue. More than one actor has felt a hand rest lightly on their shoulder backstage, only to turn and find the room empty. There is a particular dressing room, second from the left, that many performers refuse to use. They say it's always cold, even in the Texas heat, and that the mirror sometimes fogs over, revealing faint words tracing condensation. Break a leg. In the 1980s, when the theater was being restored after years of neglect, construction crews encountered their own share of unexplainable events. Tools disappeared overnight. only to reappear neatly arranged on the stage. Electrical circuits that had tested fine suddenly failed the day before inspections, and one worker, painting near the balcony, claimed he felt someone brush past him, though he was completely alone. The faint smell of lilacs followed him all the way down the stairs. Even modern paranormal investigators have visited the Crichton, drawn by its history and the countless first-hand accounts. Thea V recorded temperature drops, inexplicable whispers, and a distinct sound of heels clicking softly against the stage floor. Some have caught faint images of the silhouette of a woman in a flowing gown standing near the balcony edge. When asked what they believe, the investigators agree on one thing. Whoever she is not malicious. She feels protective, almost maternal toward the stage, as though ensuring the show goes on. Locals still leave small bouquets of lilacs in the lobby during anniversaries of the theater, as founding a quiet tribute to the actress whose spirit never took her final bow. Cast members sometimes whisper her name before curtain rise, offering her an unseen acknowledgement. And without fail, just before the lights come up, a faint flicker runs through the bulbs, and the sweet scent of lilac drifts through the air. The Crichton Theater remains as elegant as ever, its stage still alive with laughter, music, and applause. But beneath every performance lies a ghostly promise. One whispered through time and perfume. Margaret is still here, still watching, still waiting in the wings for the show to begin. In the heart of Corpus Christi, along streets that still hum with the echoes of old jazz and the clatter of Model Ts, built in the roaring 1920s, it once glittered with grandeur. A golden marquee announcing the latest silent films and live performances. Velvet seats that gleamed in the warm light, and a stage that hosted both vaudeville acts and touring orchestras. Patrons from across the city flocked to its doors, eager to step into an evening of music, laughter, and spectacle. But the Ritz holds more than memories of the past. A story etched into its very rafters, still whispered by the shadows. The theater's golden era came to a sudden halt one fateful night. A night that changed the building forever behind the scenes. He had been with the Ritz for only a few months, but was already known for his skill with the rigging. And Thomas was adjusting a massive backdrop, a painted cityscape suspended from the rafters. No one knows exactly what went wrong. Some say the rigging was worn with age. Others claim a careless misstep dislodged the pulleys. Whatever the cause, the set piece fell suddenly, a wall of wood and canvas crashing down with terrifying force. Thomas was struck and killed instantly, his body pinned beneath the weight of the stage. The theater fell silent, the audience outside unaware of the tragedy unfolding behind the curtains. When the crew found him, the stage was still. The music had stopped, and Thomas was gone from the world of the living, though many believe he never truly left the Ritz. Since that night, the theater has been haunted by his presence. Stagehands report hearing the sound of heavy boots pacing across the rafters, the faint but unmistakable clank of tools against metal beams. Some claim they felt a sudden chill in the air as they walk beneath the lighting rig, as though Thomas himself is moving just above them, checking the stage for safety one last time. The tapping is deliberate, rhythmic, a ghostly echo of a man who spent his life ensuring the show went on. Visitors have their own tales. One curious patron, attending a late-night tour during a restoration project, described seeing a shadow move high above the stage, a silhouette bending to lift something unseen. Tools would appear where they didn't indeed belong, sometimes arranged neatly in a corner, as though the ghostly stagehand is leaving reminders for those who follow in his footsteps. Others report hearing muffled footsteps on the balcony, even when the theater is empty, or feeling the faint vibration of a heavy load being dragged across the rafters. The phenomenon is not just auditory. Lights flicker unexpectedly, especially near the upper rigging, and the grand chandelier occasionally swings, slightly even when there is no breeze. Crew members preparing for performances swear they have felt a tap on the shoulder from behind, only to find the space empty. Some have described the smell of sawdust and old wood filling the air at random intervals, a scent reminiscent of Thomas's work, lingering long after the stage has been cleared. Despite the tragedy, the Ritz continued to operate for decades, though its golden glow slowly faded. The theater passed through a series of owners, each trying to recapture its former brilliance. Films gave way to live shows, then to community events, but no matter the era, Thomasai's presence remained. Some performers have come to view him as a silent guardian of the theater, a spirit ensuring that no one else suffers the same fate he did. Others approach with nervous respect, wary of the tapping and the unseen eyes that seem to follow them from above. Paranormal investigators have recorded strange readings. EMF spikes in the rafters, cold spots that move along the length of the stage, and audio capturing faint knocks and clanging metal have all been documented. Photographs sometimes show faint streaks of light along the beams, or shadows shaped like a man with tools slung across his shoulder. No one claims to fully understand him, yet the stories are consistent. Thomas remains with the Ritz, bound by the work he loved and the final, tragic act that ended his life. Locals tell a quiet ritual. Before opening night of any performance, a single tool is placed on the edge of the stage, a hammer, a wrench, or a pair of pliers as a small tribute to the stagehand who never left. Crew members whisper a soft, "Good evening." Thomas's as the lights dim, a gesture they say earns him a safer show. Many insist that after the acknowledgement, the tap-tap of his footsteps becomes less frequent, as though he's satisfied that his theater is still cared for. Though the Ritz Theater is no longer the glittering palace it once was, the spirit of its history, and of Thomas, remains vibrant. The fading velvet seats and dust-coated stage hold not only echoes of applause, but also the steady, haunting rhythm of a man who loved his work too much to ever leave behind. His presence lingers in every shadowed corner, every creaking floorboard, every clink of tools left in his honor. Visitors leave with stories of taps, chills, and fleeting glimpses of a figure in the rafters, yet no one truly fears him. Thomas is part of the theater now, an eternal stagehand, keeping the show alive from above, a silent guardian of Corpus Christi's forgotten jewel. In the heart of historic Granbury, Texas, the Granbury Opera House stands as a proud monument to the town's vibrant past. Built in the late 1800s, it once hosted traveling troupes, vaudeville performances, and local productions, filling the streets outside with laughter and music. Over the decades, the building fell into disrepair, its golden balconies gathering dust and its once pristine stage creaking under the weight of time. But a dedicated restoration in the late 20th century returned the Opera House to its former glory, ornate chandeliers gleaming, velvet seats polished, and the stage once again ready for live performance. Yet, despite its physical revival, some things could not be restored. The ghosts remained. Among them, one spirit is most often noticed, present performers have come call simply the actor, unlike other apparitions. He does not appear fully formed. Instead, he reveals himself as a shimmering blue light that moves just behind the heavy velvet curtains. It is faint, almost ethereal, yet unmistakable to those who know what to look for. Some say he is a former performer who died on stage, still bound to the theater by a love for craft. Others believe he is a guardian, ensuring every performance meets the high standards of the Opera House's golden age. Whatever the truth, his presence is impossible to ignore. Actors, both amateur and professional, have shared similar experiences. Many speak of finishing a performance, delivering the final line, only to hear slow, deliberate applause echoing through the empty theater. The sound is never loud, a subtle rhythm, measured and precise, and yet it carries a weight that makes the hair on the back of the neck stand on end. Some have turned to see the audience, only to find the seats completely vacant. Others, staring into the dimly lit balconies, have glimpsed a faint blue shimmer dancing briefly before vanishing behind the curtains. The voice of the actor is another chilling signature. During rehearsals, performers have heard a low, rumbling whisper emanate from the wings or the shadows behind the stage. It is never long, never fully formed into a sentence, but is clear enough to startle even the most confident actors. "You missed your mark," it will say, or occasionally, "a step lightly, or eyes forward, A tone carries authority, a reminder that someone A or something A is still watching. Backstage, the phenomenon continues. Stagehands often report the heavy drapes rustling as though caught by a sudden breeze, though every window and door is tightly closed. Props occasionally shift position on their own, and lights flicker for no apparent reason. A few technicians claim they have seen the faint outline of a man pacing near the balcony railing, silhouetted against the dim glow of the house lights. When approached, he disappears, leaving only a chill in the air and the faint hum of electricity from the old wiring. The history of the Granbury Opera House provides clues to the Actora-S origin. Records indicate that a traveling actor once suffered a fatal accident on the stage, falling from the balcony during a sold-out performance. Local newspapers from the early 1900s describe a young man with a commanding presence, admired by both his peers and the audience. Some believe that his passion for performance, and perhaps his disappointment at never finishing his final act, tethered his spirit to the theater. Since that day, performers swear that someone continues to ensure the tradition of excellence is upheld, even after death. During special events and gala performances, the activity intensifies. Performers report hearing footsteps in empty aisles, the subtle creak of boards above the stage, and the unmistakable shimmer of blue light peeking through the curtains during a pause in the music. It is as if the actor is observing every detail, ensuring that every cue is precise, every movement deliberate, and every emotion conveyed to its fullest. Some take comfort in this, believing the spirit brings good luck, while others find themselves trembling at the thought of being judged from beyond the grave. Patrons arriving early for shows sometimes feel a sudden chill in the foyer or hear the faintest tap of someone pacing above. A few claim to have glimpsed the blue shimmer when glancing toward the stage, though the theater is otherwise empty. Those who work closely with the Opera House say these moments are fleeting, but consistent, a pattern that has persisted for decades. Even the staff who maintain the theater have adapted to his presence. Stagehands, lighting technicians, and performers have learned to acknowledge the spirit silently, offering a nod or a quiet word before performance begins. Some will leave a small token backstage, as if to honor the actor who continues to haunt the stage. After such acknowledgement, the theater feels warmer, the lights steadier, and the air less tense, though the applause and whispers often continue regardless. The Granbury Opera House remains a place where history, art, and the supernatural converge. Its restored beauty cannot mask the ethereal traces of the past, nor can it erase the lingering presence of the actor. For those who step onto its stage, the experience is both thrilling and unnerving, a reminder that some performers never truly leave, that some applause never fades, and that even in empty theaters, a watchful eye and a low, guiding voice can still shape every movement. Tonight, as the velvet curtains rise and the house lights dim, a faint shimmer of blue dances behind the drapes. Somewhere in the wings, a low voice whispers, "You missed your mark." The performers shiver, adjust their positions, and continue. The actor is watching, and the show, as it has for more than a century, must go on. In the heart of Georgetown, Texas, the Palace Theater stands as a small-town treasure, a modest building with a grand history. Built in the 1920s, it once hosted vaudeville acts, silent films, and traveling performers who brought laughter and music to audiences eager for entertainment. Its red velvet curtains, wooden stage, and ornate ceiling might seem quaint today, but for decades, this theater has held a presence that cannot be seen with the naked eye. Its red velvet curtains, wooden stage, and ornate ceiling might seem quaint today, but for decades, this theater has held a presence that cannot be seen with the naked eye. Despite renovations and modern lighting, staff and locals alike have reported an energy that is difficult to explain, a cold drafts that move against the flow of air, lights that flicker without cause, and a persistent sensation being watched from the shadows of the balcony. The stories begin with the staff. Stagehands and technicians describe moments when they feel eyes on them, even when the theater is empty. Doors creak as if someone has passed by, floorboards groan under invisible weight, and lights fail at odd intervals, especially near the stage. One technician, closing up after a late rehearsal, swore he saw a faint shimmer above the proscenium arch, as though a figure had briefly hovered before dissolving into the darkness. Others have felt a sudden chill, The kind that makes your breath visible even on a warm night, accompanied by the unmistakable sense that someone is standing right behind you, watching your every move. The history of the Palace Theater gives these experiences a grim context. Local legend tells of a vaudeville performer named Evelyn, a talented dancer known for her precise routines and sparkling presence. In the early 1930s, during a packed evening performance, Evelina's act came to a tragic end. She had been performing a high-energy tap number when she misstepped, falling in a way that left her fatally injured on stage. The audience, horrified, watched as her life was claimed in the middle of the act. She was young, full of ambition and charm, and her death cast a long shadow over theater. Some say her passion for performance was so strong that her spirit never left the Palace Theater. Evidence of her presence has appeared in subtle yet unmistakable ways. Security cameras installed in the modern era once captured a strange phenomenon during an after-hours recording. A wispy white mist formed near the center of the stage, swirling slowly as if it had its own momentum. The figure seemed to coalesce for a few seconds before sinking into the floorboards, leaving the room empty and the footage silent. Technicians reviewing the tapes could find no natural explanation, no drafts, no reflective light, no physical intrusion, and yet the phenomenon was recorded clearly, leaving a lingering unease among those who viewed it. Performers have their own accounts. During rehearsals, some have heard faint tap shoes clicking across the stage, even when no one is present. Others report catching the echo of a phrase, a whispered instruction, or the soft sigh of someone dancing just out of sight. One actress, practicing a scene late at night, swore she saw a flash of white gliding along the stage, only to vanish when she blinked. When she asked her colleagues, she learned that several had experienced similar moments, fleeting glimpses, odd sounds, and sudden chills, and yet none could fully explain them. Visitors to the theater sometimes notice the oddities as well. Patrons arriving early might feel an unexpected cold draft brush past their arms, or see the curtains move slightly without wind. A few claimed to look toward the stage during quiet moments and caught what appeared to be a shadowy figure stepping in rhythm with a long-forgotten routine. The impression is always fleeting, like a memory brushing against reality, but the feeling lingers long after they leave. Even routine maintenance carries its own encounters. Electricians working on stage lights have found circuits mysteriously tripping when no equipment was faulty. Stagehands report props shifting positions overnight, chairs tipped over, and ropes tied in knots that no human had handled. Many attribute these occurrences to Evelyn's lingering energy as a spirit still practicing her craft, insisting that the stage is hers to command. The lights flicker, the curtains sway, and the theater seems alive with an invisible presence that cannot be ignored. Some longtime locals view the Palace Theater with a mixture of reverence and caution. They leave small tributes, a single tap shoe on the stage, or a note expressing respect, hoping to honor Evelina's memory. Staff members, too, have adopted rituals, a nod toward the balcony before beginning rehearsal, a whispered greeting before the first line of a play. Many believe that acknowledging her presence keeps the experiences less intrusive, a quiet form of coexistence with the unseen performer who remains tied to the theater. Despite these spectral occurrences, the Palace Theater continues to operate as a vibrant community venue. Plays, concerts, and special events draw audiences who may be unaware of the stories lurking just beyond the proscenium arch. Yet for those who were behind the curtains, the echoes of the past are impossible to ignore. The faint rhythm of tapped shoes on the wooden floor, the whisper of fabric from an invisible costume, and the soft swish of curtains moving on their own all serve as reminders. Some performances never truly end. Even now, when the theater falls silent after a late rehearsal, when the air grows still and the lights are dimmed, there is a presence lingering near the stage. A faint shimmer of white, a whisper of movement, and the delicate tap-tap-tap of shoes across the boards. Evelyn continues to dance. The performance, pause in life, continues in death, a ghostly tribute to a vaudeville spirit that will not be forgotten. In the heart of Lockhart, Texas, the Gaslight Baker Theater stands as a relic of a bygone era. Its brick FAA section Ade and vintage marquee evoke memories of a time when the town gathered for live plays, vaudeville acts, and musical performances under the warm glow of flickering gaslights. The theater has long been a centerpiece of community, charming visitors with its nostalgic elegance. Yet beneath its polished stage and restored curtains lies a presence that refuses to be ignored, a lingering spirit whose love of theater was so strong that death did not sever his connection to the gaslight baker. The legend begins in the 1930s, when a seasoned director named Harold Baker led the Theatre S productions with precision and passion. Known for his exacting standards and booming voice, Baker demanded perfection from his actors and crew. He was respected, even feared, but his love for the stage was unmatched. One fateful evening, during a high-pressure rehearsal of a complex production, Baker collapsed mid-command. He fell just short of the proscenium arch, clutching the script he had devoted so many years to. His final words lost the air. The cast rushed to his side, but it was too late. Harold Baker was gone, his life claimed in the very space he had breathed life into for decades. From that night onward, strange occurrences began to unsettle the theater. The gaslights, once carefully maintained, began to flicker inexplicably. Stagehands reported seeing lights swing gently in perfect rhythm, as though someone were adjusting them manually, though no one was near the switches. Actors rehearsing alone have felt scripts tug from their hands, props shifted just enough to throw them off, and faint footsteps pacing along the balcony above the stage. Each incident is subtle, never overtly harmful, yet impossible to dismiss. The air seems to thrum with expectation, as if the theater itself remembers Baccarat's insistence that every performance be flawless. Performers tell similar stories. During rehearsals, some feel a sudden resistance when picking up props, or notice that stage pieces have moved slightly from where they were left. The scripts themselves appear to react to unseen hands. Pages turned, lines underlined, cues marked, all without human intervention. One actress described it as though the director was present, invisible but authoritative, shaping the scene and guiding every movement. Occasionally, when lines are delivered incorrectly, a cold draft sweeps across the stage, and some swear they hear Baker's deep voice issuing a direction that no one else can hear. The balcony, where Baker once oversaw performances with hawk-like precision, is particularly active. Staff working late hours report hearing heavy footsteps circling above, the boards creaking in familiar patterns. Security cameras have occasionally caught flashes of movement in empty aisles and dimly lit areas, indistinct shapes appearing briefly near the rafters before vanishing. Some say that the flickering gaslights themselves respond to his mood, a pulsing gently during calm moments, flaring violently when a scene goes wrong. Even the theater's physical layout seems to echo Baccarat's presence. Doors that were locked are sometimes found open, chairs are repositioned as if arranged for better sight lines, and the curtains occasionally sway as though responding to his unseen cue. Crew members have recounted objects being moved just slightly, enough to be noticeable, but never enough to obstruct the performance, a subtle insistence on order, as if Baccarat's spirit continues to maintain control of the space he loved so dearly. Over time, the Gaslight Baker Theater became known not just for its historic performances, but also for the strange phenomena that persist. Actors often joke about taking direction from beyond when the lights flicker or a prop moves unexpectedly. Paranormal investigators have captured unusual readings, EMF spikes near the balcony, unexplained cold spots on stage, and audio recordings that reveal faint whispers resembling commands or corrections. Some recordings even appear to catch what sounds like a voice prompting "Take 5" or "Focus," though no one else is present in the theater. Visitors, too, sometimes experience the theater's subtle hauntings. Arriving early for a show, they may feel sudden chills or catch the flicker of gaslights responding to nothing at all. Patrons seated in the balcony have occasionally described a sensation of being observed, an almost palpable energy that seems to linger just above the stage. Many of these stories are shared quietly, a mixture of reverence and awe, for Harold Baker is not considered malevolent, and his presence is simply a continuation of his devotion to theater. Staff members have adapted to the invisible director, Before each performance, a small ritual is observed. The stage is inspected, props are set precisely, and a silent acknowledgement is made to Baker, honoring the spirit that continues to guide the theater. Many performers swear that after this quiet gesture, the disturbances are minimized, the flickering light steady, and the tugging scripts calm. It is as if Baker recognizes the respect shown to him and temporarily allows the living perform without interference. Even today, as the Gaslight Baker Theater hosts new productions, the stage hums with the legacy of its long-departed director. Actors feel the occasional tug of a script, hear the faint shuffle of unseen footsteps, and see the gaslights flicker just so, as if choreographed by an invisible hand. His voice may whisper through the shadows, and the theater's energy bends to his will. The Gaslight Baker Theater is more than a building. It is a living memory. On quiet nights, when the house is empty and the curtains sway in the faint glow of flickering gaslights, one can almost hear the low, commanding voice of Harold Baker, ensuring that the theater continues to shine, both in the world of the living and the world beyond. In the heart of Brownwood, Texas, the Lyric Theater stands as a testament to a bygone era. Its brick FAA sectionade, ornate detailing, and classic marquee evoke memories of a time when live performances and silent films filled the town with wonder. The theater has been restored over the decades, its stage polished, seats reupholstered, and curtains cleaned to their original splendor. Yet, despite these modern touches, the Lyric harbors a secret that no restoration can erase, the lingering presence of those who never escape a tragedy that occurred over a century ago. The story begins in the early 1900s, when the Lyric Theater was in its prime. Patrons would fill every seat, the air thick with the scent of perfume, popcorn, and excitement. Families dressed in their finest gathered for plays, operas, and musical performances that transported them far beyond the small Texas town. But one night, that joy turned to horror. A fire broke out backstage during a sold-out performance. No one is certain what caused it. Some say it was faulty wiring. Others whisper a forgotten candle left near the curtains. The flames spread quickly, smoke choking the air, panic rippling through the audience. Many escaped, but not all. Among the victims was a little girl named Evelyn. Only 7 years old, she had attended the theater with her parents to see a local production. In the chaos, she became separated, lost among the crowds and the smoke. Despite frantic searches, Evelyn never made it out. Her death, and the deaths of a few others, left a mark on the Lyric that cannot be seen but is felt by all who enter its doors. Since that night, strange occurrences have been reported, subtle yet persistent, as if the theater itself remembers the tragedy. Audiences and staff alike report the smell of smoke, sharp and unmistakable, even on nights when the theater is freshly cleaned and the air conditioning is running. The scent drifts through the aisles, rising from the wood floors and seats as though the fire never truly left the building. Stage lights, too, behave oddly. They dim without explanation, flicker at random intervals, or flare unexpectedly, often during the quietest moments of performance. Some technicians have found themselves staring at controls that seem to move on their own, as if guided by invisible hands. Evelina's presence is the most frequently described. Visitors and performers often hear the soft laughter of a young girl echoing from the mezzanine or the balcony, a sound both sweet and chilling in its context. It is never loud, but it carries a clarity that makes the hairs on the back of the neck stand on end. When the theater falls silent, her tiny footsteps can sometimes be heard pacing the aisles, a light, rhythmic tapping on the wooden floorboards that ceases the moment someone attempts to follow the sound. The laughter and steps are accompanied by a feeling of being watched, an invisible gaze that seems to drift from the shadows above. Backstage, the disturbances continue. Curtains may shift as though someone brushes against them. Props are found slightly moved from their original positions, and scripts sometimes fall from music stands without explanation. Actors preparing for performances have felt a sudden tug on a costume or a gentle touch on the shoulder, and while the sensation is never harmful, it leaves a deep sense of unease. Crew members have also reported hearing whispers, a faint, incomprehensible words that vanish the moment anyone approaches. Many performers and staff have grown used to Evelina's presence, adopting quiet rituals before each show. Some leave a small toy or piece of costume near the mezzanine as a token of acknowledgement. Others whisper a soft greeting, a silent nod to the child who never left. Those who show respect often report that the footsteps quiet, the flickering light stabilize, and the laughter becomes less frequent. It is as though Evelyn appreciates the acknowledgement, a brief moment of peace in her eternal vigil. Paranormal investigators have recorded unusual phenomena as well. EMF spikes appear near the mezzanine and aisles, temperature drops occur in localized spots, and audio devices sometimes capture faint giggles or footsteps with no visible source. Some recordings even pick up what sounds like a small voice whispering, though the words are indistinct. Security cameras occasionally show fleeting shadows moving across empty seats or the shimmer of a figure darting near the stage, only to vanish when the footage is replayed. Locals treat the Lyric Theater with a mixture of reverence and caution. Tours often pause to recount the story of Evelyn and the fire, but staff members know that the theater's spirit is not just history, it is alive in the present. Performances continue, but there is a shared understanding that the building is watched over by those who perish there. Patrons may come and go unaware of the lingering presence, but anyone who spends time on the stage or in the upper galleries feels the weight of memory, of lives interrupted and never fully released. Even in quiet moments, when the house is empty and the final audience has left, the Lyric seems to breathe with its own rhythm. The faint scent of smoke drifts down the aisles. Curtains sway ever so slightly, and a little girl's laughter echoes faintly from a mezzanine. Her footsteps pace the aisles once more, a gentle reminder of the tragedy that shaped the theater. A gentle reminder of the tragedy that shaped the theater and the presence that continues to linger. The Lyric Theater is more than a historic building. It is a monument to memory, loss, and the delicate intersection between the past and the present. Every flicker of light, every gust of cold air, every faint echo of laughter is a reminder that some spirits never leave, and that even in restored beauty, the echoes of tragedy endure. In the quiet moments when the theater falls silent, Evelina's footsteps and giggles drift once more through the aisles, ensuring that her presence is never forgotten. In the heart of Tyler, Texas, the Rose Garden Theater stands as a beacon of elegance and history. Its FAA's sectionade, adorned with ornate stonework and a bright marquee, reflects the pride of a town that once celebrated live performance above all else. Inside, the polished wooden stage, velvet curtains, and intricate balcony railings whisper of a time when music, dance, and drama were the heartbeat of the community. By day, the theater is a charming relic, inviting visitors to admire its craftsmanship. But when the sun sets, the Rose Garden reveals a darker side, one that has terrified technicians, performers, and late-night visitors for decades. The story begins in 1938, during the theater's golden era. A young dancer named Lillian performed nightly on the Rose Garden stage, captivating audiences with her grace and skill. She had fallen deeply in love with a traveling musician whose sweet melodies accompanied her every movement. The pair were inseparable, their talents and passions intertwined both on and off the stage. But one summer, her lover abruptly left town, leaving Lillian devastated. Heartbroken and unable to bear the loss, she made a tragic decision. One evening, while rehearsing alone, she climbed to the catwalk above the stage and hanged herself, leaving behind a life cut tragically short. From that day forward, technicians, performers, and even security staff began to notice strange occurrences. The most common sightings occur on nights when the theater is empty. Lights flicker or dim for no reason, and shadows move across the stage as if a performance is taking place in a parallel world. Technicians working late have reported seeing silhouettes delicate and graceful, moving across the boards. Twirling and leaping, their movements impossible for the human eye to catch in detail. When questioned, staff insists that no rehearsals are scheduled and no actors are present, yet the shadows persist, dancing with a haunting elegance. Crew members climbing the stage rigging have felt cold drafts, sudden gusts of air, and the eerie sensation that someone is moving above them. Some have glimpsed the faint figure of a woman swaying, her outline dark against the dim stage lights, as if suspended in time. Curtains ripple gently even when the theater is sealed, and wires sway without explanation, as though touched by invisible fingers. Many performers have had their own chilling encounters. During rehearsals, props sometimes shift without contact, and the air grows inexplicably cold in certain spots. A dancer practicing alone might feel a light brush on her shoulder, as if another presence is mirroring her movements. Some have reported hearing soft sobs or whispered sighs, faint but distinct, echoing from the catwalk above the stage. These sounds, coupled with the shadowy movements, give the impression that Lillian continues to perform her final dance, trapped in the theater she once graced with life. Local legend has grown around her story. Residents of Tyler recount that those who disrespect the stage or speak ill of the theater's history often experience the haunting more intensely. One story tells of a stagehand who mocked the ghost of Lillian, only to have the lights above the stage flicker violently, and a curtain whip across the empty floor. Others claim that ignoring the subtle movements of the shadows invites a cold presence to linger around them long after leaving the building. Many believe that the spirit is protective of the Rose Garden Theater, ensuring that her performance is never interrupted, even in death. Security cameras installed in recent years have occasionally captured strange phenomena. In the dead of night, when the theater is locked and no staff are present, footage has recorded shadows moving across the stage, curtains fluttering, and an unexplained flicker of light above the catwalk. One clip shows a delicate figure spinning in place, then vanishing suddenly, leaving only a faint ripple in the curtains, as if she had brushed against them. Technicians reviewing the footage often experience chills, the sensation that they are being watched even while in the safety of the control room. The Rose Garden Theater is still in operation, hosting live performances, community events, and occasional film screenings. Audiences and performers alike sense the lingering presence of Lillian in subtle ways, a draft of air that feels like a guiding hand, the faint sound of tap shoes or the soft swish of a dress, and the occasional ripple of the curtains without a breeze. Some actors speak quietly of receiving inspiration from an unseen partner, moving with a precision or grace that seems to echo the phantom dancer-esque rhythm. Crew members approach her presence with respect, often leaving flowers or small tributes near the stage before performances as a way to honor her memory. Despite the terrifying accounts, there is also a tragic beauty to the haunting. Liliana as spirit, though sorrowful and restless, remains devoted to theater she loved. The silhouettes that glide across the stage, the whispered sighs from the catwalk, and the subtle movements of props and curtains all serve as a reminder of a life intertwined with performance. A final act that refuses to end. Those who work at a Rose Garden Theater have come to recognize that the building is more than just wood, brick, and velvet. It is a vessel for memory, loss, and artistry that transcends the mortal plane. Tonight, as the final audience departs and the house falls silent, the Rose Garden Theater transforms. Shadows flicker across the boards, curtains sway ever so slightly, and a faint figure can be glimpsed above the stage. Lillian's spirit, heartbroken yet devoted, dances her eternal performance, swaying above the stage and reminding all who enter that beauty and terror can exist side by side, and that some performances never truly end. In the heart of downtown El Paso, the Plaza Theater stands as a stunning example of Spanish Revival architecture. Its ornate FAA section Ade terracotta tiles and intricate plasterwork draw the eye from the bustling streets, and its interior a sweeping auditorium with decorative balconies and a grand stage evokes the golden age of cinema and live performance. Yet beneath its beauty lies a haunted past, a history so intertwined with tragedy that even decades after its construction, the theater seems to breathe with the echoes of those who never truly left. The Plaza Theater opened its doors in the 1930s, a jewel for El Paso audiences who flocked to see the latest films and enjoy live acts. Its orchestra pit hosted talented musicians, while the balconies were filled with eager patrons. The theater quickly became a social hub, a place where the laughter, applause, and occasional gasps of surprise created a vibrant atmosphere. But the history of the plaza is marred by one particularly dark event, a tragedy that has left a lingering presence in the shadows of the building. Custodians and maintenance staff working late at night often encounter inexplicable phenomena. Cold spots appear without warning, especially near the orchestra pit, chilling anyone who passes through. Lights flicker and dim, sometimes in patterns that mimic the rhythm of applause or the rise and fall of a musical score. Equipment left alone occasionally shifts in subtle ways, a music stand knocks slightly, a chair tipped over, or a sheet of paper fluttering as though caught in a breeze that isn't a tea there. These occurrences are enough to make even the most skeptical employee pause and glance toward the shadows. More unsettling, however, are the whispers. Staff, night watch personnel, and even performers report hearing soft murmurs drifting from the balconies. Voices speaking in both Spanish and English. At other times, English remarks slip into the stillness. Did you see that? Or encore? The voices are never threatening, but they create an eerie sense that the theater has past patrons never left, that their excitement, disappointment, and wonder are trapped in the very walls. Perhaps the most chilling presence is that of a solitary man, dressed in a dark suit, his form sharp and unmistakable in the dim light, who, during a matinee in the 1940s, discovered his wife attending the theater with another man. Overcome by rage and despair, he took his own life in the building, and since that day, his restless spirit has wandered the plaza. Unlike the whispers and flickering lights, this apparition carries a weight of sorrow and anger, and those who glimpse him often describe a palpable sense of unease. Performers occasionally feel his presence even during rehearsals. Props may shift at critical moments, or scripts may appear to move slightly from where they were set. Stagehands have reported hearing his low, mournful sighs above the orchestra pit, coinciding with sudden drops in temperature. Some have even felt a subtle pressure on their shoulders, as if someone were standing behind them, observing and judging every move. Despite these unnerving experiences, those familiar with the plaza's history treat the dark-suited figure with a mixture of caution and respect. Understand that the theater is home to both memory and lingering emotion. Visitors, too, sometimes notice strange occurrences. Patrons attending evening screenings occasionally see lights flicker in their peripheral vision, or send a sudden chill as they walk past the orchestra pit. A few have glimpsed shadowy figures in the corners of the balconies or noticed the faint rustle of curtains when no wind is present. Even the projection booth, typically locked and quiet during performances, has been reported to emit soft creaks or unexplained noises, adding to Bodinga's haunted reputation. Paranormal investigators who have visited the Plaza Theater have documented unusual activity. EMF readings spike in the orchestra pit and along the balcony edges. Temperature drops coincide with unexplained whispers, and cameras occasionally capture fleeting figures near the projection booth. Audio recordings have picked up murmured phrases in both Spanish and English, voices that seem to converse with each other but vanish when investigators attempt to isolate them. These findings support what longtime staff have known instinctively. The Plaza Theater is not only a historic landmark, it is a vessel for spirits unwilling or unable to move on. Yet, despite these ghostly tales, the Plaza Theater remains a beloved and functioning venue. It continues to host films, plays, and community events, blending its living history with the echoes of its spectral past. Staff and performers have adapted to the unusual presence, often offering silent acknowledgments to the spirits before shows, or treating the flickering lights and whispers as a sign that the theater is alive in a way beyond human understanding. The Plaza Theatria's beauty by day hides its haunted nights, where cold drafts, flickering lights, and ghostly whispers remind all who enter that history never truly leaves. The shadows of past audiences linger in the balconies. Conversations in multiple languages drift through the air. And the dark-suited figure near the projection booth watches silently. Ensuring that the memory of tragedy and passion remains etched into the heart of the theater. In the plaza, the past has never gone. It waits, listens, and occasionally it moves. In the historic heart of Galveston, Texas, the grand 1894 Opera House stands as a testament to resilience, art, and the passage of time. Built in the late 19th century, it has weathered hurricanes, fires, and countless changes in the city around it. Its ornate balconies, intricate moldings, and velvet-clad seats speak of an era when live performance was the centerpiece of cultural life. But behind its grandeur lies a more somber story, a one of loss, tragedy, and a lingering presence that has haunted the Opera House for over a century. The legend centers on a young woman named Nell, an aspiring actress and stagehand who devoted herself to the opera Hausia S. Productions. In 1900, as the city of Galveston faced one of the most devastating hurricanes in American history, the Opera House became a place of shelter and preparation. Cast and crew were working tirelessly, securing sets and props, trying to salvage what they could as the storm approached. Nell, dedicated and fearless, was backstage assisting with the heavy curtains and intricate rigging when the hurricane struck with full force. The building trembled under the wind and rain, and in the chaos, Nell was fatally injured. Some say she was struck by falling scenery. Others whisper that she fell while attempting to secure a rigging line. Whatever the truth, her life was cut tragically short, and her presence remained woven into the very fabric of the Opera House. Since that night, actors, stagehands, and visitors have reported strange and unsettling occurrences. During rehearsals, faint sobbing can be heard echoing through the otherwise empty hallways. It is a soft, almost melodic sound, unmistakably human yet impossible to locate. Performers swear that the sound is sorrowful, filled with longing, as though Nell is mourning the life she never had or the stage she can never leave. At times, the sobbing seems to emanate from the wings, drifting toward the orchestra pit or rising along the grand staircases, filling the theater with an almost tangible sadness. The velvet curtains of the grand 1894 Opera House are not immune to her presence. On nights when the theater is quiet, the curtains sometimes sway gently, as if stirred by an invisible hand. Stagehands have remarked that the motion is too deliberate to be explained by drafts or air circulation. Props occasionally shift from their positions on stage, and lighting equipment flickers without cause, and temperature drops suddenly in isolated areas. Many who have worked in the Opera House describe the sensation of being watched, a faint pressure in the air that seems to follow them as they move through the backstage corridors. One particularly chilling account comes from a stagehand who arrived early one morning to prepare for rehearsal. While adjusting lighting near the rear stage wall, he felt a cold hand clutch his own. Startled, he turned quickly, expecting a colleague, only to find the hallway empty. The sensation lingered for a moment, a cold, almost desperate pressure that sent a shiver through his spine. He later learned that other crew members had experienced similar contact, subtle and fleeting, yet undeniably real. Many believe that Nell's spirit, tied to the theater in life and in death, remains attentive, almost protective of the performers and the space she loved. Actors performing in the Opera House have their own stories. Some describe hearing whispers of encouragement or faint guidance as they move across the stage, while others feel the brush of a hand along their shoulder or back, unseen yet reassuring. Performers report sudden chills in the wings, fleeting glimpses of shadow near the rigging, and the unmistakable sense that someone unseen is moving in time with their steps. While the presence is not overtly malevolent, it is persistent, a reminder of the tragedy that occurred over a century ago and the lingering life of the theater itself. Visitors have occasionally caught subtle glimpses of the unexplained. Some claim to see a faint figure near the backstage area, or at the top of the grand staircase, moving with ethereal grace. Others notice a flicker of movement in the corner of their vision, or a sudden cool draft that seems to follow them along the aisles, Security cameras, when monitored, sometimes capture anomalies as shadows shifting across an empty hallway, curtains moving slightly when no wind is present, or light flickering in isolated areas of the theater, Despite the eerie occurrences, the grand 1894 Opera House continues to thrive as a cultural centerpiece in Galveston. Staff and performers have learned to coexist with the presence they call Nell, often leaving small acknowledgments, a quiet nod, a whispered greeting, or even a single flower backstage in her memory. Many believe that showing respect to her spirit brings a sense of calm to the theater, quieting the sobbing and reducing the inexplicable movements for a time. The grand 1894 Opera House is more than just a building. It is a living monument to history, art, and the lives intertwined within its walls. The legacy of hurricanes, fire, and tragedy remains palpable, not just in the architecture or the faded posters of past productions, but in the lingering presence of Nell, the sobs in the empty hallways, the swaying curtains, and the cold touch on a stagehand's hand serve as reminders that some souls never truly leave the places they love. Even as the city thrives around it, the Opera House carries the echoes of the past. When the house lights dim and the stage grows quiet after performance, the faint sound of sobbing drifts through the empty corridors, and the curtains ripple as if a gentle breeze passes through. A cold presence lingers near the rigging, and the memory of a young woman lost to the storm endures. Nell, forever a part of the grand 1894 Opera House, remains both a guardian and a haunting, ensuring that the theater's history, sorrow, and spirit are never forgotten. In Seguin, Texas, the Texas Theater stands as a cherished piece of the town's history. Its brick exterior, vintage marquee, and classic interior harken back to a time when going to theater was an event, a night of movies, live performances, and community gatherings. Though modest compared to its namesake in Dallas, the Seguin, Texas Theater has developed a reputation all its own, not just for its architecture or film screenings, but for the inexplicable phenomena that seem to accompany each performance. Locals whisper about a presence that has lingered for decades, subtle but persistent, and those who work behind the scenes know that the theater is alive in ways that cannot be explained. The earliest stories of the haunting are difficult to trace, but nearly every longtime patron has experienced something strange. Guests report feeling the slight movement of their chairs, as if someone invisible has taken a seat beside them. The sensation is gentle, almost playful, but unmistakable. Sometimes, during suspenseful scenes or dramatic moments, the rocking intensifies, leaving the person unsure if it is a mechanical quirk or something far stranger. Those who glance sideways occasionally feel the weight of an unseen presence, and though the theater appears empty, the feeling of company lingers, lingering enough to make even the most rational viewer pause. The projectionist booth, perched high above the auditorium, is another epicenter of activity. Projectionists and technicians describe sudden drops in temperature, a chill that seems to seep through even heavy jackets and coats. Along with the cold, a voice often whispers softly, clear yet distant, ready when you are, No matter who is present, the phrase is directed as if to someone on the stage or in the audience, but it never comes from any visible source. Many staff members have admitted that when the voice speaks, a shiver runs down their spine, and they instinctively nod in acknowledgement, continuing their work with a sense of nervous respect. Those who ignore the phenomena rarely fare well. Staff have learned that the ghosts of Seguin, Texas Theater do not respond kindly to indifference. Technicians recount that lights may flicker, projectors momentarily fail, or seats creak loudly if the presence feels overlooked. One late-night custodian described turning his back for a moment, only to hear a sudden, icy sigh and feel the gentle tug of a chair rocking beside him. The lesson quickly became clear. A simple nod, a quiet greeting or acknowledgement of the unseen presence is often enough to maintain a peaceful working environment. Many performers who have used the stage for local plays or school productions report an acute awareness of the ghostly audience. While no actual figures are seen, actors feel the subtle pressure of invisible eyes following their movements, as if a presence sits in the wings or leans forward from the balcony. Props occasionally move slightly, lights shift, and scripts sometimes fall from stands without explanation. Despite these disturbances, those familiar with the theater's habits know that the presence is not malevolent. It is attentive, almost meticulous, and expects respect and participation in its own quiet way. Audiences have their own experiences, often unintentional but memorable. During late screenings, patrons have noticed that the seat beside them seems warmer or heavier, that a faint, invisible touch brushes against their arm, or that a cool draft passes over in a hall that is otherwise still. Conversations in hushed tones reveal that these phenomena are consistent, a pattern that spans decades. Longtime visitors smile knowingly and often warn newcomers to be courteous, to nod at the shadows, to acknowledge that the theater is more than just wood, brick, and film reels it is home to unseen attendants who have made it their domain. The history of the theater offers few explanations. Unlike other haunted spaces, no documented tragedy defines the Seguin, Texas theater. There was no fire, no infamous crime, no sudden collapse or disaster. The origins of its spectral presence remain a mystery, passed down as oral history and shared through anecdotal experiences. Some speculate that early projectionists or theater staff who died in the building may have lingered, devoted to their craft even beyond death. Others suggest that regular patrons or performers, those who loved the theater deeply, never left and continue to watch and assist from the shadows. Whatever the truth, the consistent behavior suggests intelligence, awareness, and a desire to participate in the ongoing life of the theater. During rehearsals, screenings, or maintenance, staff continue to nod quietly when the voice whispers, acknowledging their presence and the subtle movements that ripple through the auditorium. The gentle rocking of seats, the shifting of props, and the occasional drop in temperature are all part of the theater's unique rhythm, a dance between the living and the unseen. Those who adapt to the pattern find the environment manageable, even comforting, while newcomers are often startled, sensing immediately that the building carries more than just history. A place where movies, plays, and concerts continue to thrive. But for those who work behind the scenes or sit long enough to feel the atmosphere, it is clear that the theater is shared. The gentle rocking of seats, the whisper of a ready when you are, and the watchful, unseen presence remind everyone that the building is alive in a way beyond mere brick and mortar. When the house lights dim, the projectors hum, and the final audience leaves, one can sense the invisible companions settling into their seats, watching, listening, and ensuring that the theater continues to function as it always has, with a presence felt, respected, and never ignored. In Nacogdoches, the oldest town in Texas, the Opera House Theater stands as a living testament to history. Its brick FAA Section A, arched windows, and ornate interior reflect more than a century of cultural life, from sermons and lectures to vaudeville acts and modern performances. But beyond its elegance and storied past, the theater holds a secret, a presence that has lingered long before the lights ever shone on its stage. Locals speak of Mother May, a spirit tied to the building long before it became a theater, whose presence continues to echo through the aisles backstage and even across the stage itself. Mother May was, according to legend, a devoted patron of the original hall when it served as a gathering place for sermons and public meetings in the late 1800s. She was known for her piety, her quiet demeanor, and the gentle way she offered counsel to those around her. One evening, while attending a particularly moving sermon, she suffered a sudden illness and passed away quietly in the hall. Her passing was mourned by the community, but even then, those who attended felt that her presence lingered, a calm, guiding spirit watching over the space she had loved. When the hall was eventually converted into the Opera House Theater, the bodinga's purpose changed, but Mother Mia's presence did not. Actors and crew first began noticing her during rehearsals, long before evening performances. They speak of figure in black, moving silently through the aisles, her head bowed as she hums an old hymn. The melody is soft, gentle, and haunting, and it seems to follow the performers as they move across the stage. Some claim that when the hymn begins, it is impossible to locate her. The sound floats through the theater as if carried by an unseen wind. Props are another indicator of Mother Mia's presence. Stagehands have found that items placed carefully in one location often disappear, only to reappear in unexpected places. A sheet music stand moved to a corner, a small prop doll resting on a balcony railing, or a candle repositioned on a table. While some dismiss these occurrences as human error, repeated experiences across different productions suggest something else. Those familiar with the theater's quirks have learned to treat the missing props as a kind of ghostly direction, a gentle reminder that Mother May observes and interacts with her surroundings. The piano in the theater seems particularly connected to her spirit. At times when the stage is empty and the house is quiet, soft, sorrowful notes rise from the instrument, filling the auditorium with a lullaby that tugs at the heart. Performers arriving early for rehearsal have paused mid-step to listen, feeling an almost maternal presence envelop the space. Some say that the piano plays in response to moods, rising during tense or emotional scenes, and retreating when laughter and lightheartedness fill the room. The haunting notes are never loud or threatening. Instead, they comfort, remind, and mourn. Locals have woven Mother May into theater's identity. Her story is passed down from stagehand to stagehand, from actor to actor, and even to the patrons who frequent evening performances. They call her a guardian, a benevolent presence who ensures that the history of the theater is respected. Yet there is also an air of caution. She notices those who disregard her space, and minor disturbances, such as lights flickering, temperature drops, or the gentle rustling of curtains, are often attributed to her displeasure. Those who acknowledge her presence with respect, offering a quiet nod or speaking softly when passing through, report that the disturbances are fewer, the piano more serene, and the soft humming more harmonious. Despite the eerie experiences, the Opera House Theater thrives. It continues to host plays, concerts, and community events, blending the living vibrancy of performers with the quiet watchfulness of a spirit from the past. Actors have come to understand that rehearsals are not entirely theirs, that in every movement, every line, and every musical note, Mother May is present, observing, sometimes guiding, and always humming her eternal hymn. Stagehands leave props where she might notice them, and custodians speak softly as they work, respecting the unseen observer who has claimed the building as her own. Visitors occasionally feel her presence as well. Patrons seated near the front may hear the faint sound of humming or the soft piano notes that seem to linger just behind them. Others report an unusual sense of calm, a presence that feels both protective and melancholic. Even the simple act of walking down the aisles can carry a subtle chill, an awareness that someone watches, unseen but attentive. These experiences are fleeting, gentle, and never harmful, yet they leave a lasting impression. The Opera House Theater in Nacogdoches is more than a performance venue. It is a living repository of history, memory, and the echoes of those who came before. Mother May's presence serves as a bridge between past and present, connecting the audience, performers, and staff to the building's long and layered history. Her shadow in the aisles, the soft hum of her hymn, the gentle movement of props, and the haunting piano melodies all remind those who enter that the Opera House is a space where the living and the departed coexist. Even when the last audience has departed and the lights are dimmed, the theater is not empty. A soft hymn drifts through the aisles, a piano whispers its lullaby, and Mother Maya's presence lingers near the stage. She watches, guides, and protects, a gentle spirit whose devotion to the theater transcends death. In Nacogdoches, the oldest town in Texas, the Opera House Theater remains a place where history is alive and where one devoted soul continues her eternal vigil over performances and the people who honor her memory. In the heart of San Antonio, the historic Aztec Theater stands as a stunning relic of early 20th century architecture, celebrated for its elaborate Mesoamerican-inspired motifs and intricate murals. The building itself is a visual feast. Golden eagles carved into stone, vibrant murals depicting ancient ceremonies, and ornate plasterwork that glimmers under theater lights. But beyond its beauty, the Aztec Theater has long been the subject of whispers and strange occurrences that suggest it is more than just a historic landmark. Many who enter the building sense that it carries an energy older than the city itself, an energy that lingers in shadow corners, along the balcony edges, and above the stage. Visitors to the theater often report unusual phenomena, beginning with the ceiling murals that dominate the auditorium. These massive, vibrant depictions of Aztec ceremonies and gods are breathtaking by day, yet under the dim glow of the house lights, many have claimed to see floating orbs of light drifting near the painted figures. The orbs are small, sometimes bright enough to illuminate the mural around them, and they move as if guided by some unseen force. Some describe them as warm and golden, others as faintly green or blue, and their presence is always accompanied by a subtle, almost imperceptible hum, like a vibration of energy in the air. Perhaps the most unnerving reports, however, involve sound. Visitors and staff alike have claimed to hear chanting echoing through the theater in a language no one recognizes. The sound is soft, rhythmic, and haunting, rising and falling with the space as if carried by invisible currents. Those who hear it often describe it as compelling, almost magnetic, drawing a listener-esque attention upward to the murals and the high balconies. Attempts to record the chanting usually fail. Microphones pick up only faint ambient noise, leaving the human ear alone to perceive the unsettling sounds. Some believe the voices are echoes from the past, ancient energy trapped within the Aztec motifs, lingering in the form of ritualistic chants that predate the theater itself. During renovations in the mid-20th century, workers encountered evidence that the building held secrets even they could not explain. Dusty footprints were discovered leading from the main stage area to a sealed door backstage. The prints were small, uniform, and precise, as though someone had walked with careful intent. When the door was finally forced open, there was no one inside. Instead, the workers were greeted by a sudden blast of cold air, a temperature drop that made their breath visible, and a single curtain that rippled as if caught by an unseen breeze. The room appeared empty, yet the feeling of being watched was palpable. Many who entered afterward reported a strange unease, a sensation that the room was alive, observing every movement and absorbing every sound. Performers rehearsing alone have often felt the unmistakable sensation of a presence behind them, a subtle brushing of air, a cold finger tracing along their shoulders, or a soft pressure at the nape of the neck. Some have seen shadows dart just beyond the edge of the stage, too quick and indistinct to identify. Props occasionally shift positions, lights flicker without cause, and heavy curtains move slightly, as though invisible hands are adjusting them for some unknown performance. The activity is never overtly threatening, but it is persistent and unnerving, leaving even experienced performers on edge. During evening shows, some have reported brief flashes of light in the aisles, like tiny sparks drifting in midair, or the sensation of a presence sitting quietly beside them. Patrons in the balcony have described feeling watched, their attention drawn upward to the murals and the ornate ceiling, only to sense that something unseen is observing them from just beyond their sight. Many leave with a sense that the theater is more than a building. It is a vessel for energy, memory, and a presence that refuses to leave. Paranormal investigators have been drawn to the Aztec Theater for decades, intrigued by the reports of orbs, chanting, and mysterious cold spots. EMF readings often spike near the murals, and thermal imaging sometimes shows brief flashes of temperature anomalies along the stage and backstage corridors. Cameras set to record overnight sometimes catch the subtle movement of curtains, or the glimmer of a small orb floating near the ceiling, only to vanish when reviewed in daylight. Despite or perhaps because of it haunting, the Aztec Theater continues to operate as a cultural landmark in San Antonio. It hosts concerts, film screenings, and theatrical performances, and many staff and performers have learned to respect the energy that permeates the building. Some perform small gestures of acknowledgement before rehearsals, a nod to the spirits that seem to share the space. Others treat the strange occurrences as part of the theater-esque character, accepting that the building is alive in a way beyond the physical. The historic Aztec Theater is more than a venue. It is a living relic, infused with artistry, history, and energy that transcends time. The glowing orbs that drift near the murals, the unidentifiable chanting that rises from the shadows, and the cold gusts from empty rooms, all serve as reminders that this theater is haunted by something ancient, something tied to the patterns and symbols of a culture long gone. Behind every curtain ripple, every shadow, and every inexplicable sound, the Aztec Theater continues to echo with energy that refuses to be silenced, inviting those who enter to witness both its artistry and its mysteries. In Uvalde, Texas, the Earl Theater stands as a testament to classic cinema and live performance. Its FAA sectionade is modest but elegant, with vintage signage and a small marquee that has welcomed generations of moviegoers and theater enthusiasts. Inside, the theater had S-plush seats, polished wooden floors, and ornate stage for proscenium evoke a bygone era when the magic of performance captivated every visitor. Yet beneath its charm and history lies a darker story, a secret that has lingered in the shadows for nearly a century. The Earl Theater is more than a place of entertainment. It is a stage for lingering tragedy, haunted by a spirit unwilling to leave. A young actor, known for his passion but plagued by self-doubt, was performing a local rendition of Hamlet. Night after night, he struggled to find the acclaim he so desperately sought. On the night of what was meant to be his breakthrough performance, he faltered on stage. Lines were forgotten, cues missed, and the applause he had envisioned never came. Devastated by the perceived failure, he retreated behind the stage, never to return alive. His death sent shockwaves through the small town, and though the theater continued its operations, a shadow had settled over boards and backstage corridors. From that moment on, reports of strange occurrences began to accumulate. Technicians, performers, and audience members alike have described incidents that defy explanation, particularly during performances of Hamlet, the play most closely associated with the Actora S final night. Lights have been known to burst suddenly, sometimes plunging the auditorium into darkness for seconds before flickering back to life. Mirrors in the dressing rooms or hallways have cracked inexplicably, their fractures forming jagged patterns that no one can trace to an outside cause. Doors slam on their own, echoing through the empty corridors, as if some invisible force is enacting a dramatic punctuation to an unseen scene. Stagehands and performers often feel a presence behind the curtains, a cold weight that brushes along their shoulders or grips at their arms during rehearsal. Many have reported hearing muffled sobs or whispers, faint and sorrowful, as though the Actora S despair continues to resonate in the theater. During performances, subtle movements occur on stage without explanation. A prop shifts, a chair tilts slightly, or a curtain flutters as if stirred by a phantom hand. Actors on stage sometimes experience the disorienting feeling that they are not alone, that eyes are watching their every line, their every gesture, with a critical and emotional intensity that transcends the audience in the seats. Audience members, too, have had unnerving experiences. In quiet moments, some feel the gentle vibration of a seat beside them, as if an invisible companion has taken their place. Others hear faint muttering from the wings or the backstage area, whispers that grow louder during Hamlet performances and fade once the final curtain falls. The occurrences are subtle enough to provoke doubt, yet consistent enough to convince longtime patrons that the theater holds more than just memories of applause and curtain calls. Even the physical structure seems responsive to the haunting. Electrical panels have been known to malfunction inexplicably, lights flickering in rhythm with the tension on stage. Doors that have been securely latched slam with a force that startles those nearby. And mirrors in the dressing rooms seem to crack at precisely the moments when the tragedy of the play reaches its peak. It is as though the theater itself has absorbed the emotional energy of that fateful night in the 1930s, channeling it into small, dramatic events that remind performers and staff that some tragedies refuse to stay in the past. The Earl Theatria S staff have learned to coexist with these occurrences. Stagehands nod quietly during moments when unseen forces make their presence known. Actors leave small offerings of acknowledgement backstage, and technicians have grown accustomed to adjusting lighting or props with an awareness that unseen hands may already be at work. The theater's ghost is not malevolent in the traditional sense. Rather, it is intensely present, reliving the anguish of its final performance over and over. The spirit attachment is tied to the stage, the plays performed, and most strongly to Hamlet, a story of despair, fate, and tragic missteps, all mirrors of the actor's own life. Despite the haunting, or perhaps because of it, the Earl Theater continues to operate. The stage becomes a vessel for the living and the unseen, a space where performance and ghostly presence coexist. For those who spent long hours behind the scenes, the theater is a place of constant tension, a space where artistry and tragedy intersect in ways that are tangible and unforgettable. The Earl Theater is, in essence, a living tragedy. Each performance, Each rehearsal, each quiet moment after the audience leaves carries the weight of the past. The lights may burst, mirrors crack, and doors slam. But these occurrences are not random. They are echoes of a life cut short, a spirit that refuses to leave its stage, and a reminder that theaters are places where emotion is amplified and immortalized. In Uvalde, the old theater stands as a testament to both art and sorrow, a place where the curtain never truly falls on tragedy, and where every night the spirit of the actor lives on, enacting the play he could not finish in life. In the heart of Abilene, Texas, the Paramount Theater stands as a majestic reminder of the golden age of cinema. Its FAA sectionade, adorned with intricate stonework and a grand marquee, has welcomed generations of moviegoers and theater enthusiasts. Inside, the auditorium captivates visitors with its vaulted ceilings, plush velvet seats, and a painted sky that stretches above the stage and balcony, giving the impression of sitting beneath a calm, starlit night. Yet beneath the theater's elegance lies a presence both persistent and unsettling, a spirit that seems as tied to the Paramount as the architecture itself. Security guards working late into the night have long reported encounters that defy explanation. The most frequent sightings occur along the balcony, where figures appear to walk just beyond the edge of vision. These are not fleeting shadows, but clearly defined shapes, human in form, moving with purpose as if inspecting the theater long after the last visitor has departed. Often, they vanish when approached, leaving only an uneasy stillness and the echo of footsteps that linger far longer than they should. Some guards have admitted to feeling watched as they make their rounds, an awareness that someone unseen is observing their every step, silently ensuring that the theater remains exactly as it should. The projection room, perched high above the auditorium, is another focal point of the haunting. Technicians and staff report that the door often opens on its own, swinging wide to reveal a cold draft that smells faintly of old film stock, a scent both nostalgic and unnatural. At times, the room seems alive with energy. Reels shift slightly on their spindles. Dust swirls despite the absence of movement, and the projector itself occasionally flickers to life, its lens illuminating the empty theater below. Those who enter the room unprepared often experience a palpable chill, as though someone unseen has stepped inside alongside them, waiting and watching. Perhaps the most chilling encounter occurred with a janitor who had worked at the Paramount for several years. During a routine cleaning late one night, he reported hearing a Mana-S whisper. Mana-S whispered directly behind him, A start the reel to A. The voice was clear, commanding, yet no one was there. The sensation as if the theater itself had pressed upon him, demanding compliance. Terrified and shaken, he quit on the spot, leaving the theater. To its unseen guardian and the staff who had grown accustomed. To guards or janitorial staff. Employees across departments, projectionists, concession workers, and theater managers have all noted subtle anomalies during evening performances and rehearsals. Lights flicker without warning, curtains shift slightly when no draft is present, and props occasionally appear in unexpected locations. Some performers claim to feel an unseen presence brushing past them as they move across the stage, a faint pressure on the shoulders or a whisper of movement in the wings. Some performers claim to feel an unseen presence brushing past them as they move across the stage, a faint pressure on the shoulders or a whisper of movement in the wings. Some performers claim to feel an unseen presence brushing past them as they move across the stage, a faint pressure on the shoulders or a whisper of movement in the wings. Others have reported cold spots in the auditorium, sudden drops in temperature that linger for several seconds before fading, often coinciding with the appearance of the mysterious figures in the balcony. Audience members, too, occasionally sense the theater's otherworldly presence. During quieter films or performances, some have felt the sensation of a presence sitting just beyond their peripheral vision, a shadow that moves without explanation. Others notice faint whispers or murmurs that seem to drift from the balcony or projection booth, never fully forming into words, but creating a distinct sense of being observed. Those who have spent time in the theater repeatedly describe a feeling that the Paramount is alive, watching and silently participating in every performance. The origin of the haunting remains unclear. Some speculate it is tied to the early projectionists who worked tirelessly to bring films to life, dedicating their lives to craft and refusing to leave even in death. Others suggest the spirits of patrons who once filled the balcony, their presence lingering as a permanent audience, observing the theater in perpetuity. Whatever the truth, the consistency of reports over decades indicates an intelligence and awareness that cannot be easily dismissed, a presence that interacts with both staff and visitors in subtle but undeniable ways. Despite the eerie activity, the Paramount Theater continues to operate as a cornerstone of Abilenia-esque cultural life. Staff have learned to acknowledge the presence with quiet gestures, nods when strange noises occur, subtle acknowledgments in projection room, and respect for the shadows that occasionally drift along the balcony. Many employees speak fondly of the theater as guardian, describing the experiences as unsettling yet strangely comforting. A reminder that the theater is more than a building, it is a living, breathing repository of memory and energy. Even after the last performance concludes and the house lights dim, the Paramount Theater does not truly empty. The figures along the balcony continue their silent patrol. The projection booth door swings open to reveal a gust of cold air, and the faint scent of old film stock drifts through the auditorium. Occasionally, a soft whisper drifts across the empty rows. It starts to reel to A. Those who hear it understand immediately that they are not alone, that the spirit of the Paramount is present, vigilant, and intimately tied to the life of the theater. Its painted ceiling, velvet seats, and ornate architecture hold a story beyond human perception, where the living and the unseen share space devoted to performance, memory, and vigilance. In this theater, every flicker of light, every whisper, and every shadow is a reminder that art and the supernatural can coexist, and that some presences never truly leave, continuing their watch over the magic of the stage long after the audience is gone. Just over the Texas border in Shreveport, Louisiana, the Strand Theater stands as a relic of early 20th century grandeur, its FAA section oddly a mixture of ornate brickwork, towering arches, and a neon marquee that has welcomed audiences for nearly a century. Inside, the auditorium stretches with rows of plush seats, and a stage framed by gilded moldings recalls the golden age of theater. The Strand has long been celebrated for its architecture and history, yet it carries a more somber reputation, a one whispered about among performers, staff, and patrons alike. The theater, it is said, is home to an audience of shadows, a unseen yet undeniably present, a reminder that some souls never leave the stage. Staff have reported that curtains sometimes open on their own, the heavy fabric gliding silently as if an invisible hand were readying the stage. Lights dim or flicker without warning, and a faint, almost imperceptible murmur seems to rise from the empty seats. It is not a single voice, but many, overlapping and indistinct, like echoes of conversations from decades past. Those who hear it describe a haunting sensation, the sense that someone is watching. Performers are often the first to encounter these unseen spectators. Actors rehearsing alone or during off hours speak of an eerie awareness on stage. Some have reported the sound of slow clapping following a particularly emotional line, only to realize they are entirely alone. Others feel the subtle brush of air along their skin, like a whisper of presence moving just behind them, accompanying their gestures. Props occasionally shift on their own. Small items nudge slightly as though someone unseen is arranging them for an audience that no one else can see. The legend surrounding the Strand suggests that these shadows are the spirits of actors who never found their final applause. Perhaps they perished before achieving recognition, or perhaps their careers ended abruptly, leaving their talent forever unacknowledged. Their souls, bound to the theater, are condemned to witness every performance, caught in an eternal loop of observation, unseen and unthanked. Staff and performers alike speak of a weight in the air during emotionally charged moments, a collective presence that responds to the energy of the stage and mirrors the intensity of the actors' performances. Backstage, the hauntings become more tangible. Dressing rooms, hallways, and the wings are often suffused with cold spots, sudden chills that cut through even the thickest stage coats. Mirrors sometimes fog inexplicably, even when the air is dry, and shadows appear just at the edge of vision, vanishing the moment one turns to look. Many who work long hours at the Strand have developed a quiet respect for these occurrences, acknowledging the unseen audience with a nod or whispered greeting before beginning a rehearsal or performance. Ignoring them, it seems, often invites mischief. Lights may flicker more violently, doors may slam without cause, and props occasionally tumble to floor as though startled by invisible hands. Patrons occasionally experience glimpses of the shadows as well, though rarely directly. Though many have tried to uncover the truth, it remains a closely guarded secret. Some describe a chill passing through the rows of seats, the sensation of eyes watching them even when the theater is otherwise empty. Others hear the faint murmur of conversation from the balcony or the faint shuffle of footsteps along the aisles when no one is moving. These experiences are fleeting and subtle, but they leave an impression strong enough to make the audience feel the theater as living history, a mix of performance, memory, and lingering presence that transcends the ordinary. During special events or particularly emotional performances, the presence of shadows seems to intensify. Staff report lights flickering in rhythm with dramatic moments, curtains rippling despite still air, and faint applause echoing softly in the empty sections of the theater. Many performers have remarked that these manifestations feel like both encouragement and judgment, a spectral audience that watches with careful attention, aware of every misstep and every triumph. Some find the experience unsettling, while others embrace it, feeling a unique connection to theater's deep history. Investigators who have studied the Strand Theater often find evidence of unusual energy. EMF readings spike in the balcony and along the wings. Audio recordings occasionally capture faint murmurs, and thermal cameras sometimes reveal shapes moving against the darkness, vanishing the instant they are confronted. No record explains why these spirits linger, and yet their presence is felt consistent across decades, bridging the theater's past and present. The Strand Theater continues to operate, hosting plays, concerts, and community performances. Staff and performers have learned to coexist with the shadows, leaving small gestures of acknowledgement before rehearsals or evening shows. They understand that the theater is more than a venue. It is a living memory. Each creak of the floor, each flicker of light, and each whisper in the dark serves as a reminder that the building itself is infused with the lives and struggles of those who walked its boards before. Even after the last curtain falls and the audience departs, the Strand Theater does not empty. The shadows remain in their seats, unseen but attentive, their presence drifting through the aisles, the balcony, and the stage. The murmurs fade with the lights, yet their watch continues, a timeless testament to performers who never receive their final applause. At the Strand, every performance is more than a show. It is a gathering witnessed by an eternal, unseen audience whose silence is as palpable as their ghostly presence. In Waco, Texas, the Hippodrome Theater stands as a storied emblem of resilience and history. Its grand marquee, ornate interior, and sweeping balconies evoke the golden age of American theater. Yet the building's beauty belies a darker past. Fires, structural collapses, and multiple renovations have scarred the theater over the decades, leaving behind not just architectural marks, but echoes of those who never survived the tragedies. Today, the Hippodrome is operational, hosting plays, concerts, and film screenings. Yet staff and visitors alike report experiences that suggest the building carries with it the memory and presence of lives lost. One of the most persistent phenomena occurs in the lobby. Staff have described seeing charred figures, shadows of individuals burned in past fires, walking slowly across the grand foyer. These figures are usually faint, their edges shimmering like smoke, yet their features are recognizable enough to suggest human form. Witnesses say the figures vanish upon reaching the theater doors, leaving no trace behind, as if their presence is confined to the interior space. The effect is chilling, the fleeting glimpses accompanied by a faint smell of smoke that seems to hang in the air despite modern ventilation. The auditorium itself is a hot spot for strange occurrences. Seats sometimes depressed with invisible weight, as though unseen patrons have taken their place. During performances, actors and crew have reported feeling the subtle pressure of someone seated beside them, only to glance around and find the row empty. Other times, the sound of faint crackling is heard near the stage and the unmistakable hiss of burning, though the theater is spotless and no source is apparent. Some performers have paused mid-scene, unnerved by the eerie sound that seems to echo through the wooden floors and ornate balconies, aware that it is both distant and disturbingly near. Staff working late often encounter the phenomena during routine maintenance or cleaning. The temperature in certain areas fluctuates suddenly, dropping to a cold, unnatural chill. Doors are secured and locks swing open without explanation, and faint whispers have been reported echoing from the balconies. During the 2007 renovation, one team of workers experienced a particularly unnerving incident. As they cleared debris from the upper levels, a man's voice whispered from an empty balcony, low and mournful, saying, "I never made it out." The statement froze the workers in place, a stark reminder that the theater's history is not confined to its records or photographs. It is present, tangible, and watchful. The Waco Hippodrome Theater has survived multiple disasters, each leaving traces in the building's structure and, seemingly, in its energy. Fires in the early 20th century destroyed portions of the auditorium, while a partial collapse decades later claimed the lives of several construction workers. Each tragedy appears to have left its mark, creating a layering of spectral impressions that staff and visitors encounter to this day. Some speculate that the theater itself retains memory, the energy of the building manifesting as these haunting experiences, a permanent echo of the lives entwined with it. Performers are often the first to sense the lingering presence. Rehearsals held during quiet hours can be particularly unnerving. Actors report hearing the faint shuffle of footsteps in the wings, the creak of the stage boards under weight that is not theirs, and the occasional gust of hot or cold air brushing past, as if someone is pacing unseen. Some have glimpsed movement along the balcony edges, shadows darting just out of the corner of their eyes, vanishing when directly observed. Props sometimes move, scripts fall from tables, and microphones catch soft, indistinct murmurs, as though the theater itself is participating in the performance. Rehearsals held during quiet hours can be particularly unnerving. Actors report hearing the faint shuffle of footsteps in the wings, the creak of the stage boards under weight that is not theirs, and the occasional gust of hot or cold air brushing past, as if someone is pacing unseen. Visitors in the auditorium occasionally feel theater's weight, though rarely in a physical sense. Patrons have described the sensation of someone sitting behind or beside them, the faint heat of a human presence, and then the sudden emptiness as if the unseen spectator has vanished. Others hear the crackle of fire or the faint murmur of someone calling from the upper balcony, leaving an inexplicable sense of unease long after the performance concludes. These experiences are subtle yet consistent, a thread that connects modern audiences to the theater's turbulent history. Despite the hauntings, the Hippodrome Theater remains a vibrant cultural hub. Staff and performers have developed a quiet understanding of coexistence with its supernatural residents. Technicians nod in acknowledgement when lights flicker. Stagehands adjust props with awareness of invisible hands. And actors often whisper small greetings before rehearsals, a mark of respect for those who have remained behind. Many describe this interaction not as fear, but as a form of reverence, a recognition that the theater's history is alive, in ways both visible and unseen. The Waco Hippodrome Theater is more than a stage. It is a living chronicle of resilience, tragedy, and memory. Charred figures drifting through the lobby, seats pressed by invisible weight, the faint crackle of fire, and whispers from empty balconies all serve as reminders of the theater's complex past. The building itself becomes a participant in every performance, carrying the weight of stories, lives, and tragedies, ensuring that the spirit of the Hippodrome endures. Alongside the living, the building itself becomes a participant in every performance, carrying the weight of stories, lives, and tragedies, ensuring that the spirit of the Hippodrome endures. Alongside the living. In Bertram, Texas, the Globe Theater stands as a small but storied venue, its brick FAA section Ade and traditional marquee welcoming generations of local theatergoers. Inside, the auditorium is intimate, with wooden floors, narrow aisles, and a stage that has seen everything from Shakespearean plays to community musicals. The theater has always been admired for its charm and dedication to live performance. Yet behind the velvet curtains and ornate moldings lies a peculiar reputation. The Globe is said to be haunted, and those who spend time on its stage know the feeling of being watched by more than just the audience. Actors who rehearse at the Globe often describe an unnerving sense of presence. Scripts, carefully placed on tables or music stands, sometimes vanish, only to reappear in entirely different locations. Props are shifted without explanation, a chair moved slightly to the left, a cup appearing where it was never set leaving performers questioning their own memory. Some claim that while reciting lines, they hear their own words echoed from the shadows, not in their own voice, but in one that is eerily familiar, resonating with the tone of someone standing just behind the curtains. These occurrences are subtle at first, but grow more pronounced as rehearsals extend into quiet hours of the evening. Audience members have occasionally been caught in inexplicable moments during performances. One particularly memorable incident occurred during a spring production of a classic play. The auditorium was filled with eager spectators when a single spotlight, seemingly of its own volition, illuminated the center of the empty stage. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the stage remained devoid of performers. The director, initially amused, chalked it up to a technical glitch. Yet when the control booth was checked, it was found entirely empty. The spotlight had turned on without human intervention, leaving only a lingering sense that someone or something had been orchestrating the moment unseen. Stagehands and technicians frequently report other anomalies. Lights occasionally flicker in patterns that do not correspond to any control panel, and the stage curtains sometimes sway gently, even in the absence of air movement. Temperature shifts are common, with cold spots forming near certain areas of the stage or the wings, often coinciding with moments when the theater feels most alive with unseen presence. Some crew members swear they have glimpsed fleeting shadows moving along the upper balcony or disappearing into the darkness behind the proscenium arch. While none of these events are violent or threatening, the persistent sense of being observed creates an undercurrent of tension and unease that lingers long after rehearsals or performances conclude. Actors often speak of the Globe as if it were a sentient entity. It watches their movements, responds to their energy, and subtly interacts with the objects and environment on stage. Props seem to obey unseen hands. Scripts migrate mysteriously, and echoes of lines mimic performers' voices in ways that are difficult to explain. Many performers have adapted by leaving small acknowledgments before rehearsals, a quiet nod to the empty seats, a whispered, a thank you when picking up a prop, or even a light tap on the floorboards as if to show respect to those who linger unseen. Those who ignore these subtle rituals sometimes experience heightened disturbances. Lights flicker more aggressively, doors close abruptly, and props tumble unexpectedly. Even audience members, though unaware of the theater's lore, sometimes sense the Globia's hidden spectators. Patrons seated near the front or along the balcony occasionally report a sudden chill, a whisper that seems to drift from the wings, or the faint rustle of movement in empty rows. Some leave the theater with a lingering impression that they were not entirely alone during performance, that eyes unseen had followed their attention and quietly shared in the unfolding drama. These experiences, while brief, are consistently described across decades, suggesting that the Globe spectral audience is both enduring and selective in its appearances. While EMF detectors register unexplained spikes near the wings and control booth, often mirroring the actor's own dialogue or breathing. Though these phenomena are inconsistent and difficult to quantify, the experiences of performers and staff provide a strong sense that the theater itself is alive in a way beyond the physical, infused with memory, attention, and presence. Despite the unnerving events, the Globe Theater continues to thrive as a hub for live performance. Directors, actors, and crew have learned to live with the presence, adjusting their routines and incorporating respect for the unseen audience into their practices. The hauntings, rather than being purely frightening, have become part of the theater's identity, a mysterious energy that connects past, present, and future performances. In Bertram, the Globe Theater is more than just a building. It is a stage shared with unseen spectators, a place where echoes of the past mingle with the living. From the vanished scripts and shifted props to the whispered lines and self-activated spotlights, the theater serves as a reminder that performance is not confined to those physically present. Every rehearsal, every performance, every quiet moment after the audience departs carries with it the watchful presence of the Globia's spectral inhabitants. In the heart of Marble Falls, Texas, the Uptown Theater stands as a gleaming example of Art Deco elegance. Its FAA section ade adorned with geometric patterns, polished metal accents, and marquee that has welcomed audiences for nearly a century. Inside, the auditorium is equally striking. Velvet seats stretch across polished floors. Chandeliers hang like frozen stars, and the stage itself is framed by intricate plasterwork that gleams under the house lights. Yet beneath the theater's architectural splendor lies a history of eerie happenings, a pulse of the paranormal that has long intrigued staff, performers, and visitors alike. One of the most frequently reported phenomena occurs behind the curtains. Stagehands and performers often hear footsteps pacing across the backstage area, the sound crisp and deliberate against the quiet hum of the theater. These footsteps come in varied rhythms, a sometimes slow and measured, other times quick and restless yet they always stop as abruptly as they begin. Those who attempt to follow the sound report finding the area empty, with only the lingering scent of cigar smoke hanging in the air. It is a smell that seems impossible. Smoking has been strictly prohibited in the theater for decades. Yet the pungent aroma persists, drifting through the dressing rooms and wings in a way that feels almost tactile. The origin of the haunting is often traced back to a wealthy patron who died in the theater decades ago. During a live performance, he reportedly suffered a fatal heart attack while seated in the middle of the auditorium. Witnesses at the time described the horror of the moment, the gasp of the audience, and the sudden stillness that fell over the theater as the man's life ended. Ever since, staff and performers claim his presence lingers, a figure perpetually waiting for the second act to begin. Some have glimpsed a shadowy form sitting upright in one of the seats, perfectly still, only to vanish when approached. Others have felt a subtle pressure in the rows where he was known to sit, as if the weight of his anticipation remains imprinted on the furniture itself. Performers report additional disturbances during rehearsals and performances. Props occasionally move without explanation, a chair nudged slightly to the left, a script slid off a table, or a costume item missing only to reappear in another dressing room. Some actors hear their own lines echoed from the shadows, whispers that repeat their words with a faint, haunting inflection. Stagehands frequently find curtains swaying, though no draft is present, and lighting technicians have reported flickers in the absence of power fluctuations. These occurrences, while subtle, accumulate to create an atmosphere being observed, a sense that the theater itself is aware, alive, and attentive. Audience members, too, occasionally experience the Uptown's unusual energy. During quieter scenes or off-peak showings, some report a chill that moves along the rows. Patrons seated near the center have described feeling someone watching over performance, their attention drawn to the shadows at the edges of the auditorium. Some have glimpsed flashes of movement in the periphery, dark shapes that vanish when directly looked at, leaving only the sense of being in the company of another unseen spectator. Backstage, the hauntings are particularly pronounced in the dressing rooms. Costumes sometimes shift on their racks, mirrors fog or reflect movements that are not there, and the pervasive scent of cigar smoke seems to linger most heavily in these areas. Performers who spend extended time in the rooms describe an almost companionable presence, a sense that the patron is waiting, watching, and participating in the theater's life in a way that is more attentive than threatening. The atmosphere is heavy with anticipation, as if the second act is eternally paused, ready to commence for a spectator who can no longer physically turn the page. Technicians and staff have come to adapt to the theater's peculiar behavior. Lights are often dimmed or adjusted with an acknowledgement of unseen attention. Props are placed with care, and performers sometimes leave small gestures of recognition, a whispered greeting, a nod toward the audience section, or a quiet acknowledgement of the familiar footsteps behind the curtains. Many who work long hours at the Uptown describe the presence not as malevolent, but as a companion to the art, a lingering echo of the theater's vibrant past that continues to participate in the performances. subtly shaping the environment and experience. Paranormal investigators have noted unusual activity at the Uptown. EMF readings spike near the stage and backstage areas. Thermal cameras capture fleeting shapes in hallways and dressing rooms. And audio equipment occasionally records faint whispers, murmurs, and even snippets of dialogue that mimic performances. Though these phenomena cannot be fully explained, their persistence across decades reinforces the belief that the theater is a living repository of memory and energy. Despite the hauntings, or perhaps because of them, the Uptown Theater continues to flourish. It hosts live performances, community events, and film screenings. Its Art Deco elegance captivating all who enter. Staff, performers, and patrons have learned to coexist with a lingering presence, accepting the theater as spectral audience as part of its identity. The footsteps behind the curtains, the smell of cigar smoke, and the shadowy figure awaiting the second act are reminders that the Uptown is more than a building A. It is a vessel of history, emotion, and presence that transcends time. At the Uptown Theater in Marble Falls, beauty and haunting intertwine. Every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of light, and every trace of smoke in the dressing room serves as a testament to the patron who never left, waiting for a performance that will never end. In Aransas Pass, Texas, the Rialto Theater stands as a weathered yet proud relic of a bygone era. Its FAA Section A, simple but dignified, has welcomed countless locals, travelers, and sailors over the decades. Inside, the auditorium stretches with rows of worn wooden seats, polished floors, and a stage framed by heavy velvet curtains. For generations, the Rialto was a place where the local community could gather for performances, vaudeville acts, and films, a brief escape from the daily grind. But beneath its familiar charm lies a lingering presence, a ghostly reminder of sailors who never returned from the sea, yet somehow returned here, bound to the theater. The Theatria-esque haunting begins subtly, often felt rather than seen. Staff and performers frequently report the faint clink of chains echoing through the aisles, a rhythmic sound that seems almost musical yet carries a weight of sorrow. During rehearsals, actors have described pauses in their performance when the sound appears, as though the presence of long-lost sailors demands acknowledgement. Some have swore that the noise seems to move, shifting along the aisles, as if invisible footsteps accompany the sound, rising and falling in tempo as it circles the auditorium. It is subtle at first, a whisper sound, but gradually grows in intensity, filling the space with the scent and sensation of the sea. Stagehands, especially those who have spent long nights preparing the theater, describe a strange dampness in the air, the faint tang of salt water clinging to their clothing and hair. It is a disorienting experience, as though the theater itself has become a portal to the ocean, bringing the distant waters and the sailors who love them back into the auditorium. The stage and curtains are also active in the Rialto's hauntings. Actors have felt the sensation of motion behind them, as though the sails of ghostly ships brush past the stage and wings. Props sometimes shift as if nudged by unseen hands. And during particularly emotional or dramatic scenes, the curtains seem to pulse with the rhythm of an unspoken tide. Many performers and staff have come to believe that these movements are not random, but a reflection of the Sailorsome memories, those who once filled the theater before departing to sea, or those who never returned from perilous voyages, their spirits now wander in the aisles they loved. Audience members, though often unaware of the theater's history, sometimes notice unusual occurrences. Patrons have reported a sudden chill, a sensation of being watched, or even the fleeting sight of shadowy figures gliding along the edges of the stage or the balcony. Some swear they hear whispered conversations in low tones, the hushed cadences of voices from another time discussing the Dia-esque performance, or muttering about the sea, ships, and distant horizons. The phenomenon is subtle but undeniable, leaving an impression long after the show has ended. Staff working late are often the most affected by the Rialto-esque spectral visitors. Custodians and technicians report hearing the clink of chains in empty corridors, accompanied by the soft murmur of waves. Doors and cabinets occasionally move on their own, seemingly nudged by invisible hands. And objects such as scripts, props, or stage tools appear in places they were not left. Many who have experienced these events describe them not as threatening, but as reminders of the theater's history, a presence that insists on being acknowledged and remembered. Paranormal enthusiasts who have visited the Rialto often note unusual energy patterns. EMF readings spike in the aisles, particularly near the stage and balcony areas, and thermal cameras occasionally capture fleeting shapes that resemble sailors moving through the empty rows. Audio equipment sometimes records faint whispers, low laughter, or the soft lapping of water that seems impossible to source within the building. While these occurrences defy explanation, they reinforce what locals have known for decades. The Rialto Theater is a space imbued with memory, history, and lingering spirits. Despite its spectral inhabitants, the Rialto continues to function as a central part of the Aransas Pass community. Performances continue, from local plays to touring musicians, with staff and actors adapting to theater's unique energy. Many have developed quiet rituals of acknowledgement, a soft nod to the empty rows, a whispered greeting before rehearsal, or a subtle acknowledgement of the phantom footsteps, as a mark of respect to the sailors who remain. Some performers even claim that these rituals bring a sense of connection, as though the ghosts themselves become part of the performance, adding a dimension that is simultaneously eerie and compelling. The Rialto Theater is a place where past and present intertwine, where the memory of sailors lost at sea is preserved not only in story, but in the very fabric of the building. The clink of chains, the soft murmur of waves, the swaying curtains, and the scent of salt water all serve as reminders of those who once walked the aisles, who loved this theater, and who never made it home. The memory of sailors lost at sea is preserved not only in story, but in the very fabric of the building. In Aransas Pass, the Rialto stands as a bridge between worlds, a place where the sea and stage converge, and where every performance is observed by an audience of shadows, bound forever to the magic of the theater and the rhythm of the ocean. In Bastrop, Texas, the Pioneer Theater stands as a modest yet beloved relic of mid-century cinema. Its simple brick FAA Section Ade, neon-lit marquee, and traditional cinema doors have welcomed generations of moviegoers eager to escape into film. Inside, the auditorium is cozy, with worn velvet seats, polished wooden floors, and a projector booth perched high above the audience, a commanding view of the screen below. To the casual visitor, it is a quaint, nostalgic theater, but those who have worked here long enough know that the Pioneer hides a deeper, darker story. The legend begins in the 1950s, during the theater's heyday. A young projectionist, entrusted with the complex machinery of the time, was conducting a late-night screening when tragedy struck. A malfunction in the equipment caused a sudden explosion in the booth, taking the projectionist's life instantly. The theater staff and local community were left in shock, mourning a life cut short by a job that demanded precision and vigilance. Over the decades, the tragedy became part of the Pioneer's lore, whispered about among employees and patrons alike, a shadow lingering just beyond the flicker of projector's light. Even today, the booth retains an unsettling presence. Staff report that on quiet nights, when the theater is empty, the projectionist's station glows faintly blue, casting an eerie light across the walls and ceiling. The glow is soft, almost gentle, yet impossible to ignore. Some witnesses have seen a figure inside the booth, translucent and shifting, methodically adjusting film reels that no longer exist. The apparition moves with purpose, hands tracing the motions of a craft that ceased decades ago, as if the projectionist continues to perform his duties long after death. The haunting extends beyond the booth itself. Workers entering the theater after hours describe an unmistakable feeling of being watched, a cold pressure in the air that seems to follow their movements. Lights in the auditorium occasionally flicker in rhythm with unseen activity, and the hum of the projector sometimes begins without anyone pressing the switches. Some have even reported hearing the low mechanical whirring of film rolling, the subtle clicks and clacks of reels, despite the fact that no film is loaded. These sounds are hauntingly precise, almost as if the theater itself is replaying the final moments of that fateful night. Patrons, too, have felt the Pioneer's ghostly energy. During evening screenings, a sudden chill may sweep through the rows, or projector light may flare unexpectedly. The projector light may flare unexpectedly, drawing the audiencia's eyes toward the empty booth. Some have glimpsed movement in the blue glow, the shape of a man standing silently, his attention fixed on the screen. While few witnesses have claimed direct interaction with the apparition, the presence is undeniably felt, a subtle yet persistent reminder of the theater's tragic history. Stagehands and projectionists who work at the Pioneer have developed a quiet understanding of the spirit. Many leave small gestures of acknowledgement before starting a screening, a nod, a whispered greeting, or a gentle placement of reel as though offer respect to the unseen projectionist. Staff have come to treat the booth as hallowed space, aware that it is not just a mechanical station, but a nexus of lingering energy. Ignoring it, they have learned, often brings more pronounced disturbances. Lights flicker more violently, equipment hums unpredictably, and shadows seem to move across the walls. Investigators and paranormal enthusiasts who have visited the Pioneer Theater have documented evidence supporting these experiences. EMF detectors occasionally spike around the booth, thermal imaging cameras reveal fleeting human-shaped forms, and audio equipment captures soft mechanical sounds and whispers, faint but distinct. Some recordings even seem to mimic the projectionista's work, as it were a reel, the subtle click of gears, and the hiss of an old projector, all occurring when the theater is completely empty. Though these phenomena cannot be definitively explained, they reinforce the impression that the Pioneer is more than a building. It is a vessel of memory and lingering presence. Despite its spectral occupant, the Pioneer Theater continues to operate as a center for cinema in Bastrop. Movies still play on the screen, families and film lovers gather in rows, and the building hums with life and laughter. Yet those familiar with its history always maintain a quiet reverence for projectionists who never left. The blue glow of the booth, the faint mechanical sounds, and the occasional glimpse of the figure adjusting non-existent reels serve as a reminder that the theater's story is layered a blend of art, tragedy, and persistence beyond the physical world. In the Pioneer Theater, every late-night screening, every flicker of light, and every hum of unseen machinery carries the weight of memory. Every flicker of light and every hum of unseen machinery carries the weight of memory. The ghost of the projectionist remains at his post, tending to a craft he loved and honoring a theater that has survived decades of change. Patrons, staff, and performers all share the space with this presence, whether they see him or merely feel the quiet blue glow of his eternal vigilance. At the Pioneer, the lights may dim, the reels may stop, but the projectionista's watch never ends, his duty continuing in the shadowed booth above the audience, a silent guardian of the films and stories that pass beneath him. In the remote reaches of Terlingua, Texas, the Starlight Theater stands as a lonely monument to a bygone era. Built during the height of the mining boom, its wooden frame and peeling paint evoke a sense of nostalgia. Its location, surrounded by vast stretches of desert and silence, amplifies its haunting presence. While its location, surrounded by vast stretches of desert and silence, amplifies its haunting presence. The theater was once a hub for miners and locals seeking respite from the harsh realities of life in a frontier town. By day, the sun beats down on the arid landscape, and by night, the desert air carries an eerie stillness. Yet those who enter the Starlight Theater often find that the stillness is deceptive, that the echoes of the past linger, filling the empty space with voices, music, and movements that defy explanation. The Starlight's most commonly reported phenomenon is music. Visitors frequently describe hearing the soft strum of guitars drifting across the desert sands, accompanied by the distant laughter and singing of people long gone. Sometimes the melodies are faint and melancholy, almost a whisper. At other times, they swell with surprising clarity, as if a small band had assembled in the center of the empty auditorium. The music seems alive, moving with intention, shifting from the stage to the aisles and out into the desert beyond the walls. Those who listen carefully swear that the notes carry stories, tales of miners celebrating a successful strike, lovers sharing a quiet evening, or travelers pausing to enjoy a rare moment of leisure. The theater itself is a stage for strange movements. The old curtain, frayed at the edges and faded from years of exposure, occasionally flutters despite the absence of wind. Staff and visitors have watched as it lifts gently, rises and falls, as though caught in the invisible hands of performers who once graced the stage. Sometimes the curtain moves rhythmically, in time with the phantom music, as if an unseen audience were still seated in the dusty rows, clapping and cheering for a show that ended decades ago. The sense of motion extends beyond the curtain. Doors creak open and close, floorboards groan under invisible weight, and shadows seem to dance just beyond the edges of vision. The people who encounter the Starlight-esque hauntings often report a strong sense of history intertwined with the spectral activity. Visitors feel as though the theater remembers every performance, every song, every laugh, and every secret whispered in its walls. The presence is not threatening. It is melancholic, a quiet acknowledgement of lives that once found joy and entertainment here. Miners who long ago escaped the heat and dust of the desert now linger in memory and spirit, filling the theater with echoes of camaraderie, music, and fleeting human connection. Audiences and explorers alike had described subtle interactions with the Starlight-esque unseen occupants. Some feel a faint brush of air across their arms, as though someone has passed by in the aisle. Others swear they hear whispers repeating fragments of conversations from another era, or the soft sigh of someone settling into a long empty seat. Occasionally, a visitor will notice a shadow flitting across the stage or a faint outline of a figure at the balcony, only to vanish when directly observed. Even the smell of dust and old wood seems infused with memories of the faint tang of smoke from lamps, the sweetness of old perfumes, and the metallic scent of mining tools carried on the wind through cracked windows. The desert setting amplifies the eeriness. At night, the Starlight Theater sits isolated under a vast, starlit sky, the surrounding landscape eerily silent. Any sound seems magnified, from the shifting of sand to the distant call of coyotes. Against this backdrop, the ghostly music and laughter carry an uncanny realism. Visitors report that even when far outside the theater, on the edge of the desert, the faint strumming of guitars can still be heard, tugging at memory and imagination alike. The theater, it seems, is not confined to its walls. It reaches outward, infusing the surrounding land with the echoes of its past. Paranormal enthusiasts and historians who have visited the Starlight often document unusual readings. EMF detectors sometimes spike near the stage, thermal cameras occasionally capture fleeting shapes, and audio recordings sometimes pick up distant strumming or laughter not audible to the human ear. These phenomena, though difficult to explain, reinforce the impression that the Starlight Theater is a vessel for memory, preserving the lives, songs, and stories of the miners and townsfolk who once filled it with life. Despite its isolation and the weight of its history, the Starlight Theater continues to draw visitors. Tourists, explorers, and locals come seeking a glimpse of the past, an encounter with the lingering echoes of human experience. Many leave in quiet awe, struck by the melancholic beauty of a place. Where music drifts across empty seats, laughter lingers in the air, and the curtain flutters without wind. The theater stands as a reminder that even in the harshest, most desolate landscapes, the human spirit, in its joys, sorrow, and artistry, leaves a lasting imprint. Interlingua, the Starlight Theater is more than a building. It is a bridge to another era, a space where the desert and memory converge. Phantom guitars, invisible laughter, and the fluttering curtain are not merely hauntings. Those who enter, whether performers, explorers, or curious visitors, share in the theatria's quiet magic, witnessing a world where the echoes of the past never truly fade, and the songs of miners long gone continue to drift across the sand. And there you have it, my fearless friends, 25 haunted theaters in Texas, where the curtains move by themselves. From grand opera houses to dusty desert stages, the Lone Star State hides a stage show unlike any other, one performed by the dead, for an audience of the living. Listen carefully, because sometimes the applause d'OS and the T come from the crowd. So, next time you take your seat, feel the velvet beneath your fingersa, and the chill on your neck. Feel the velvet beneath your fingersa, and the chill on your neck. Sometimes, The applause, the OS, and the T come from the crowd. Listen carefully, A. Because sometimes the applause, the OS, and the T come from the crowd. So, next time you take your seat, feel the velvet beneath your fingersa and the chill on your neck. Listen carefully, A. Because sometimes the applause, the OS, and the T come from the crowd. So, next time you take your seat, feel the velvet beneath your fingersa and the chill on your neck. Sometimes the applause, the OS, and the T come from the crowd. Listen carefully, A. Because sometimes the applause, the OS, and the T come from the crowd. So, next time you take your seat, feel the velvet beneath your fingersa and the chill on your neck. Sometimes the applause, the OS, and the T come from the crowd. Listen carefully, A. Because sometimes the applause, the OS, and the T come from the crowd. So, next time you take your seat, feel the velvet beneath your fingersa and the chill on your neck. Sometimes the applause, the OS, and the T come from the crowd. Listen carefully, A. Because sometimes the applause, the OS, and the T come from the crowd. So, next time you take your seat, feel the velvet beneath your fingersa and the chill on your neck. Sometimes the applause, the OS, and the T come from the crowd. Listen carefully, A. Because sometimes the applause, the OS, and the T come from the crowd. So, next time you take your seat, feel the velvet beneath your fingersa and the chill on your neck. Sometimes the applause, the OS, and the T come from the crowd. Listen carefully, A. Because sometimes the applause, the OS, and the T come from the crowd. So, next time you take your seat, feel the velvet beneath your fingersa and the chill on your neck. Sometimes the applause, the OS, and the T come from the crowd. Listen carefully, A. Because sometimes the applause, the OS, and the T come from the crowd. So, next time you take your seat, feel the velvet beneath your fingersa and the chill on your neck. Sometimes the applause, the OS, and the T come from the crowd. Listen carefully, A. Because sometimes the applause, the OS, and the T come from the crowd. So, next time you take your seat, feel the velvet beneath your fingersa and the chill on your neck. Sometimes the applause, the OS, and the T come from the crowd. Listen carefully, A. Because sometimes the applause, the OS, and the T come from the crowd. So, next time you take your seat, feel the velvet beneath your fingersa and the chill on your neck. Sometimes the applause, the OS, and the T come from the crowd. If you enjoyed